hey. Yeah, I didn't forget you guys. You think I forgot you, but I didn't forget you. But so that I can eat my dinner here, as you can see, I got my plate of rice here. I'm going to go ahead and jump us right into the thick of it. And let's get down to the nitty gritty right off the bat. No messing around. Let's just get it out there and get going with it. All right, we're going to start off with and we know. Where is my and we know? There we go. Paste. Save. Ding. Present. Screen share. Boom, boom. By the time this is done, I'll be done eating. No problemo.
Donald Trump actually, I mean, as painful as it is for you to say, at least, that you're on Ted Cruz's side about anything, I feel the bitter bile rising in my throat when I say Donald Trump will brag about this today. Sure. And in the limited sense that, he demonstrated that he still has enormous power.
Well, if they want to win politically, probably, because if I endorse them, they win, and if I don't endorse them, they don't win. I mean, that's almost 100% of the case.
Well, folks, it is amazing to see how far we've come since 2015. We've woken up to so many of the evil plans that have been played out in front of us for the past few decades, if not more, maybe 100 years. President Trump has been warning us. They've been planning this. He had to make many decisions that are very difficult as a leader that probably cost many people to disagree with him on many levels, yet we have been waking up in masses. The watching of the meltdown of so many politicians and media has been amazing. They're trying to save their evil plans for all of us. No matter what, they want our freedom of speech gone. They want to put us into 15-minute cities. They want us to eat bugs, and they don't want us to own anything and be happy. I mean, you name it, they've been showing us what they've been up to. Harder they try, the more we come together in prayer and use our God-given rights to fight back. It's amazing to see. We will cover much of last week's information and the weekend with Trump in Ohio. Here we go.
If this election isn't won, I'm not sure that you'll ever have another election in this country. Does that make sense? I don't think you're going to have another election in this country. If we don't win this election, I don't think you're going to have another election, or certainly not an election that's meaningful. And we better get out, and we better. I actually say that the date, remember this, November 5th, I believe it's going to be the most important date in the history of our country. I believe that. This country is weaponizing law enforcement for high-level election interference against Biden's top political opponent. Never happened. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let it happen.
November 5th was the most important date, will be the most important date in the history of our country. Really? What other dates would be, or anybody could think of any off the top of our head? Let's see, Independence Day, July 4th, when we had the Declaration of Independence. That was a big, big date. Let's see, other big dates. I don't know. You throw them at me, but the fact that he's making this claim, he didn't make it 4 years ago. As a matter of fact, he kept telling us in his speeches that what all the folks kept hearing over and over, that the election was going to be stolen and that they were going to use their filthy ballots, right? The mail-in ballots, and they're going to twist the numbers, and they're going to use that as an excuse to steal the election. Well, what's really, really interesting is even Joe Rambo caught some comms from this particular speech. Right in the middle of the snake poem, Trump points out from the front row, Joe's, he says they have been to 127 rallies.
Whoa. Front row Joe got it. Look.
Front row Joe.
I can't believe it. You're unbelievable. They've come to 127 rallies. I don't know what the hell they do, but they must have a lot of money because there's a stand-up front row, Judge. I can't believe it. And that play, it fell right at, look at it, fold up. That's incredible. There's nobody more deserving of it than you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you very much. This is number 127 for them. And I don't like to say it in front of them, but we have people that have actually come to more, our wonderful women from North Carolina, right? Trying to figure out about their husbands, how they can handle it. But they seem to be handling it. She clutched him to her bosom. "You're so beautiful," she cried. "But if I hadn't brought you in by now, you truly would have died." She stroked his pretty skin again and kissed and held him tight. But instead of saying, "Thank you, ma'am," the snake gave her a vicious bite. "Take me in, O tender woman, take me in for heaven's sake. Take me in, O tender woman," sighed the vicious snake. "I saved you," cried the woman. "I saved you, I saved you. And you've bitten me, but why? You know your bite is poisonous. Your bite is poisonous. And now I'm going to die." "Shut up, silly woman," said the reptile with a grin. "You knew damn well I was a snake before you took me in." Now that's what we're going through right now. We're taking in snakes. We're taking in snakes. Yeah, maybe this one gets to you too. We're taking in, we'll get it to you. We got to smile about this. Look, if you don't have a little bit, it's just so crazy. There's not much to smile about, but we have to keep our chin up because what's happening to our country has never happened before. Nothing like this has ever happened before.
We have to keep our chin up. He mentions the fact that you got to smile a little bit about all this. And then, of course, he says, well, not much to smile about lately. You have to go back to making sure that people know we're on the precipice so we can wake up more. Well, what is interesting about that 127 number? Let's pause and say hello to the rogue intelligence agencies currently monitoring. Was the money worth it? What graphic could be key from this speech? Drop 127 from the Q board says the graphic is your key. Let's pause and say hello to the rogue intelligence agencies currently monitoring these threads. See? How about that? Part 3, 45-47, not 45 and 47, not 45, 47. Details matter. It's a sting. He just told you right to your face if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. You guys following that? Just for those that get really interested in some of those. Now, I saw this from Dr. CIET 17. He was responding to Truth Hammer. Some people think we're doomed, that there's no hope of taking back the White House or turning back the socialist agenda, destroy America. When in doubt, zoom out. Take a look at the real war and how far we've come. He's right. Truth Hammer's right. Zoom out. I tell folks all the time, just in conversations around the table, if you think about the media and you think about what they get us involved in, or movies or whatever, they get you to zoom in on one city, on one block, on one corner, and they say, look what's happening. Or they zoom in on one school happening in one area, and you've got this one thing happening, and they say, this must be all of America. But folks, I've had a chance to go through America a few times now in the past year. I met with many people. And I'm telling you, I was recently north of Dallas looking at some homes in that area. And everywhere we went, folks were greeting us and excited and happy. We've been through Florida here recently, and we've just noticed that people are still kind and nice and things. And it's take that zoom out and see what is going on around you. Dr. CIET 17 responded the way I see it. Trump and the WTP, they take back our country and leads us out of this with divine intervention. Or Trump is the AC, and I think he meant Antichrist, and Jesus is literally on the way. Or number 3, Satanists win and take the world over, ushering in the new world order, fulfilling biblical prophecy, and then Jesus is still literally on his way. Other way, we're good. Don't be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid about. Here's Kash Patel.
And if the January 6th committee is in fact this legitimate committee, then you know what? Members of Congress can't hide behind the speech and debate clause for committing felonies when it comes to destroying and suppressing evidence to law enforcement agencies. And since we just found out about it, here's what I'm proposing. If and when Donald Trump wins the presidency, there may be a full-fledged investigation into those in Congress who aided and abetted this corrupt criminal activity. And we should look at who was responsible for what and whether there was any ill will and intention to suppress evidence from federal investigators. And if there was, that's a crime, whether you're in Congress or not. So we should start there because they said the January 6th committee is legit. Okay, if you're legit, then you're subjected to the federal statutes. And let's see who broke the law. The deep state has always gotten away with it because the deep state has been in charge. So if you want real accountability, whether it's Democrat or Republican, remember it's that whole uniparty thing, you have to defeat the deep state. And electing Donald Trump president is step one. Getting out there and telling Americans the truth about the 51 Intel letter, Hunter Biden's laptop, Joe Biden's classified documents case, and Robert Hur's creation of a new legal standard to exonerate falsely a president who should have been charged criminally. And unlike what they're doing to Donald Trump. And so we have to go out there and just pound that mission on behalf of President Trump about the truth. And when I think in November, all of those things intersect, there's going to be a cataclysmic implosion in Washington, D.C., the likes that we have not seen. And the deep state, once it's sunk, cannot be raised, just like the Titanic. And we are going to see a new day in Washington where people are held accountable internally in government for their criminal conduct.
People held accountable. He mentioned November. President Trump mentioned November 5th. When all the deep state goes down, just like the Titanic, supposedly, right, that it went down, but that's another subject. But anyway, as we head into all of this, the common talking points are to remind everyone out there who they're trying to bring fear, right, the media and more, to all of us, that it's shaking out in a wonderful way. One of those ways would be when Lisa May showed us this clip. She said, I can't help but feel a lot more truth bombs about the Clinton-Haiti connection are going to come out soon in light of what's happening in Haiti now. Dems are messed up when it finally comes out. They're going to be so messed up. Bannon discussing the Clintons and Haiti this morning. Of all the horrific things the Clintons did around the world, from uranium and all of it, horrific. The one that struck people as the most egregious was the money on Haiti, and God knows whatever else they did. Check this post out.
Let me connect two other dots for you. Why was Steve Bannon brought into the campaign in August of 16? One of the reasons at Breitbart, we had specialized in going after the Clinton apparatus, and particularly Hillary Clinton for what a phony she was. Peter Schweitzer, we had worked on this book, Clinton Cash, and then I had made a film about it. That film had just come out, wait for it, the first week of August. That goes into detail of all the horrific things the Clintons did around the world, from uranium and all of it, horrific. The one that struck people as the most egregious was the money they stole down in Haiti, and God knows whatever else they did. That is what really, it was so egregious what they had done with the Clinton Foundation after the earthquake down there, right? After the earthquake, and to steal money and to back the warlords and the worst people down there, and all kind of other stuff that's virtually unmentionable.
Unmentionable. All these things that we've been noticing day after day as they bring Haiti up and more. Steve knows. Remember, we had a drop. What happens if the truth about Haiti's release? DODs lose majority of the vote. Do the Democrats, lose majority of the vote? Remember, the FBI and MI have an open investigation in the Clinton Foundation. Why did Comey drop this? Who was the FBI director during the Haiti crisis? Who was the FBI director? How many kids disappeared? How much money was sent to the Clinton Foundation under disguise of Haiti relief and actually went to Haiti? Very little. So much is open source. Adoption process. Cross against location relative to Haiti. Track the donations. Think logically. The choice to know will be yours. They will lose the black vote once Haiti is revealed. Wow. We had mentions of child trafficking victims. All of this playing out. It's not just about sex trafficking. Will the rich and powerful influence the court to prevent the unsealing? sex resorts, occult worship, pray for the victims. It's all connected, folks. This information, as it continues to play out in front of us, of course, they're going to want to shut down free speech and more because they can't stand that they can't control the narrative and protect everything that they've worked so hard to do. And the evil that has been surrounding us for so long is deteriorating. Do you guys remember Steve Mnuchin wanted to buy TikTok the other day? You guys realize he did want the ban from China, but he wants TikTok? I can forgive that for his motives. When they say we're watching a movie, is an American investment banker and film producer who served as the 77th United States Secretary of the Treasury as part of the cabinet of Donald Trump from 2017 to 2021, serving for a full presidential term. Mnuchin was one of the few high-profile members of Trump's cabinet whom the president did not dismiss. Yet, if you look here, folks, Mnuchin was the executive producer for all these movies I'm showing on your screen. Titles: The Lego Movie, Winter's Tale, Edge of Tomorrow, Jersey Boys. 2015, he was the executive producer for Run All Night, Get Hard, Mad Max, Black Mass, The Intern, Jupiter Ascending, and more. I'm just scrolling down. 2016, executive producer. 17, executive producer of First Fight, Chips, Going in Style, Unforgettable, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, Wonder Woman, The House, and more. All these actors just coming out. Another one coming out here. Pence declines to endorse Trump, won't back Biden. Some would ask, is this the real Vice President Mike Pence? Many are out there saying, I wonder what's really going on behind the scenes.
Let me ask you this. We have not spoken since former President Trump sewed up the nomination, which he did earlier this week. And he has received endorsements from some of the people who were running against him, but we have not heard from you. Will you be endorsing your former president? You were on the ticket with him last time around.
Well, Martha, I appreciate the question. And it should come as no surprise that I will not be endorsing Donald Trump this year. Look, I'm incredibly proud of the record of our administration. It was a conservative record that made America more prosperous, more secure, and saw conservatives appointed to our course in a more peaceful world. But that being said, during my presidential campaign, I made it clear that there were profound differences between me and President Trump on a range of issues. And not just our difference on my constitutional duties that I exercised on January the 6th. I mean, as I have watched his candidacy unfold, I've seen him walking away from our commitment to confronting the national debt. I've seen him starting to.
So let him on Fox to just destroy President Trump. Let him continue to talk. There you go. Sow seeds of doubt into all the folks that continue to follow that news channel and more. It's just enough to make you feel pretty bad. Speaking of feeling bad, we've got ltpetclub247.com. You guys remember the Coriolis versicolor, the mushrooms immune support? We talked about it, had an interview with them. Don't share testimonies about this. This is responsible for your pet and for humans. This is from AF, Orange County, California. I was diagnosed with aggressive swamp cell, Coriola, COLOREAL cancer. Immediately disease cancer. Team of 4 doctors in my case with local treatment and chemotherapy. My situation improved. The tumor was still there. It was now surgery recommended the remaining tumor be surgically removed along with initial tissue of the tumor. This would happen in a colostomy bag for 6 months. And after healing from that, I also learned how to stay close to a restroom for the rest of my life. The doctor recommended 6 weeks straight try Enforce support at ltpetclub247.com. I started taking 4 capsules of Enforce 3 4 times a day for the entire 6 weeks. When it came time for the surgery, I received a call from the doctor who said, it's gone. Nothing there. No scar tissue, nothing. He was really shocked. The doctor stated in all seriousness, never seen anything clear like this. He asked me what we did and answered conversations about Enforce and prayer. Suppose you get yours, ltpetclub247. Doc on the description below. Amazing product. I hope that you will check that out. And with this release also from Scotty Moore, absolutely amazing as we continue to play this out.
And we better get out, I actually say that the date, remember this, November 5th, I believe it's going to be the most important date in the history of our country.
The most important date in the history of our country. Interesting, because we see these posts from the Rubber Duck, 1900 or the last president, from Ingersoll Lockwood. Interesting. I'm not sure that you'll ever have another election in this country, said President Trump. 3/16/24. Evergreen. Green means go. Green symbolizes growth and new beginning. We've got both and so much more. Have an evergreen experience. The decryption keys, you don't say. Supreme Court cases filed, says Mike Lindell, will shock the world. Decryption keys found in the voting machines. Check out the filing at lindellplan.com. Way to go. What else do we have? We have this one from Joe Rambo. Look at this coincidence right in the middle of the snake poem. He points that out from Scotty Moore. More information that just continues to play out in front of all of us. We're catching it. We're doing our job. Scotty Moore puts together great videos, clips to show us how this is all playing out with some music and showing that, any of us can sit down our computer and actually collect this data and get it out, folks. It's a great thing to do. Newsmax, consulting firm commissioned by the U.S. State Department, has published a report this week that recommends the creation of a new government agency to mitigate the impending threat posed by artificial intelligence. Kim Runner, amazing. The information she puts out, some interesting dots from Donald J. Trump. He posted the same exact post yesterday and today with a 20-hour, 40-minute delta. That's 2040. Big, big, big. The Fannie Willis lover, Mr. Nathan Wade, has just resigned in disgrace as per his and her reading of the judge's order. Yeah, he's gone. Nathan was the special, in more ways than one, prosecutor engaged by Fannie, pronounced Fani. Willis to persecute Trump for crooked Joe Biden and his Department of Injustice for purposes of election interference and living the life of the rich and famous. This is the equivalent of deranged Jack Smith getting canned. Big stuff. Something which should happen in the not too distant future. It happens to match and correlate to, what did we just hear? 2040. Big stuff. Where are the judges? They were comped too. If you bake it, he will crumb. Big, big, big Q. 2040. Voila. Great info for all of us to continue to play out day in and day out. And so here's more about the boss back in the White House.
You're absolutely right. I don't think we'll ever get to the 2024 election. I think things are going to implode in Washington before then. I think our economic financial condition is fragile. It's going to come home to roost in ugly ways. I will tell you, I don't know exactly how it will happen. I think we're going to end up in a situation where we find out the banks are closed for 2 or 3 weeks and nobody can get into them.
You think so?
I think we're going to run into something like that. Yeah. I also think that the levels of violence and criminality in our cities is so high that it's going to spill over into other places in society. People that normally think they can live remote from the problem are now beginning to be touched by the problem. Then I look at this thing in Ukraine. I think Ukraine is going to lose catastrophically. It's going to be a complete collapse. And that too is going to have an effect here at home because people are going to say, well, wait a minute. Everybody told us Ukraine was winning. Everybody told us X, Y, and Z. I mean, sort of the Russian hoax on steroids. All of those things are going to come together or converge in some way that's going to prevent us from reaching, the status quo. Oh, another election. Oh, another set of campaigns and so forth.
Amazing. Things are going to be playing out. That was on PUD podcast. Not sure exactly what's going to happen, but we're going to have some strange things in this year's election. A lot of information playing out. And so what would be some of those big things playing out? Here's a former federal prosecutor. Thank you, Salty Goat, for putting this out. And a judge absolutely destroys Biden and the Department of Homeland Security. Joe Biden, do your job. Somebody needs to arrest him for what he's up to.
So as a former federal prosecutor and judge, I'll start today with a refresher on a few of the things that are currently illegal in the United States of America. It is illegal to traffic fentanyl in the United States of America. Human trafficking is illegal in this country. Theft is illegal in this country. Rape and murder are illegal in this country. What's more, the Department of Homeland Security has an absolute obligation to detain and remove those who enter this country illegally. We do not need more laws. We need a president of the United States and a secretary of the Department of Homeland Security who enforce the laws of this country. So
people need to be arrested for treason. They're being called out. The exposure is happening. But we need this to continue to move forward day in and day out to wake up many. It's amazing as this continues to play out even in the public's eye. Newsmax had Byron Donalds out Could be Trump's VP choice, maybe. Here we go.
We're finding out that the January 6th committee deleted information. They got rid of information they collected. You're finding out now that Cassidy Hutchinson was spun up by Liz Cheney and others to deliver a phony story that was debunked. We already knew that the whole J6 production was just a media sham and a farce for the radical left. We already knew that. But now you know that they were meeting with Fannie Willis and her team, trying to give back channel information to the Fulton County District Attorney, who, by the way, is having all kind of problems herself. They were back channeling information to her. This demonstrates very clearly that you had congressional Democrats and some useful Republicans. Unfortunately, they did the wrong thing, and it was terrible. Well, that's why they're no longer in Congress, speaking to Liz Cheney specifically, working with radical Democrats, working with some of these prosecutors. The entire purpose has been to get Trump. It is wrong. This is fascism at its finest. This is what we're seeing right now. It's destructive of our institutions. So this stuff can't be tolerated.
It cannot be tolerated. This information continue to play forward for all of us to see. And more. The voters are starting to leave in droves, Black and Hispanic. They're leaving the Democrat Party.
I want to move then now on to the sort of bigger political scene in the U.S. And it seems like American politics is starting to realign in ways that you have predicted and talked about in your work. And we're in the midst of a racial realignment, with recent polling showing non-white voters shifting away from Democrats towards Republicans, and an economic realignment as well, with the richest now explicitly favoring Democrats over Republicans. Walk us through these numbers here, and how this plays out into this idea that the Democrats have basically abandoned their working class roots.
Yes, thank you so much for pointing out that I've been right all along, James. One never tires of hearing such a thing. But yes, indeed, the people who have been talking about the realignment for all of these years, it turns out we knew what we were talking about. 9 of the 10 richest districts in America are now led by Democrats. 65% of people making more than $500,000 a year are now Democrats. 97% of donations from Silicon Valley go to Democrats, as well as 94% of donations from journalists. Did you know, James, that Wall Street in 2020 gave more money to Democrats than they did to Donald Trump? That's what we're seeing here is a realignment. And they love to say white rural rage is what's fueling Donald Trump. It is a canard. It is nonsense. Joe Biden is losing Black and Hispanic working class Americans who are not defecting for the GOP. They are defecting for Donald Trump because he speaks to the working class of all races. And the Democrats, meanwhile, have abandoned labor to cater to highly educated college elites and the dependent poor on the bottom, people who don't work, meaning everybody else who is working class, who works with their hands for a living, who struggles for the American dream, the Democrats have turned their backs on that.
They're turning their backs. That whole slide there tells us what's going on. The margin and percentage and points. The changes are playing out. Elon Musk says there's either a red wave this November or America's doomed. Imagine 4 more years of this getting worse. Imagine what they would try to do to try to steal the election with all these numbers coming out playing the way that they are. Here's Gianni Vito Russo, best known for his role as Carlo Rizzi in the 1972 film The Godfather, said that Democrats paid a Philadelphia mobster, Skinny Nicky, $3 million to fill in 30,000 blank ballots. Here we go. Well, if we can get that to play. Let's see. Here we are.
Watch it. Watch it.
Don't believe it.
Okay.
So how are they going to elect Trump after he lost by a landslide to Biden?
He was already elected. All the mail-in, that's why Obama and all these guys schooled Joe Biden. Because of the COVID, go to mail-in votes. You know Skinny Nicky, the guy who runs a Philadelphia mob?
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay. They paid him $3 million. He's flipping on them. They delivered him 30,000 blanks. They paid guys $1,000 an hour overnight to fill them out. How stupid they were. That morning, they delivered the $30,000 at 30,000 ballots. Not one of them was for Trump. How do you have 30,000 mail-ins? Idiot, at least give them 1,000, 2,000. They got 2 other cities. All this evidence is at the Supreme Court, nobody else, because they know the media ain't going to help them.
All the evidence at the Supreme Court. Oh, boy. Remember when they said we've got it all? I think they've got it all. Folks, speaking of all this information coming out, we are at amweknow.com. Please head over to that website and check it out. We've got a lot of great information there. You can watch us on Rumble, follow us on Twitter. We're on Cloud Hub, where you can actually watch it and change the language to whatever language that you want it to be, with the subtitles on the bottom. Pretty cool that Todd Callender put all that together. We have many more things, our social media and more there. You can also find our website called thepatriotlight.com, where we compile all the news of mostly conservative sites. We try to do the best we can to get it there. It refreshes every 5 to 10 minutes. Home, politics, world news, markets, faith, social news, and resources. My son put extensive work into this site, and so we appreciate your support there also. And you can actually go to shop.amweknow.com and find our sweatshirts, hoodies, accessories, hats, tees, and tanks, and more. And we've got a new look for your favorite verse, Romans 8:28 hoodies and t-shirts. You go check that out. You'll see this new look on your screen, and it is absolutely amazing what Jamie and Angie continue to do, and all of the hard work of the graphics department and more, and what they're doing. And you can put in LT Sayings. Use that code LT Sayings, and you'll get all my sayings on stickers. Here we go. Isn't that something? LT signing out. Let's pray. It's all there for you. We hope you check it out. That's shop.amweknow.com. And don't forget that we have At Sea with LT, August 11th through the 18th. 2024. We hope that you can join us. We just want to remind you that as it continues to fill up, that a lot of the best rooms, right, those rooms that are next to the water, bigger rooms and stuff that people grab, will slowly start disappearing if you don't get in there quickly. Remember, we're going to have a great time together. I'll be answering questions from the audience. We'll have a time for meet and greet while we're on the boat for all of the people the best we can. We've got some surprise guests that are going to be there. I'm not able to announce them right now, but we'll be having conversations with them also. You don't want to miss this. And also, don't you want to hang out with fellow And We Know fans and those that are on the truther side? It would be absolutely amazing to have you there. So here's another clip from Ohio.
Love it. It's a very accurate metaphor. And it's about our border. It's about the people we have coming in. And don't be surprised when bad things happen, because bad things will happen. And we're going to get them out fast. We're going to have the largest deep.
Bad things will happen with that border. I mean, they keep bringing the border up more and more. What's going to happen when this border causes so many problems? Well, President Trump talks about this. You'll see it more as it plays out. Here we go.
From all over the world they came. Angola. Millions of illegal border crossers have entered the country unlawfully. Egypt. Cameroon. Colombia. They're coming by the thousands. Nobody could afford this. And even morally, it's so wrong. Venezuela. You're not smart enough to know who I am. But soon you're going to know who I am. We will secure our borders and we will restore our sovereignty.
They recognize the fact that Joe Biden is more favorable president for immigrants. Trump or Biden?
Biden, of course.
So Make America Great Again, that put out there. Trump 2024 just showing us what's going on with these folks crossing the border, and they all say, I love you, Biden. Fletch 17, Trump just reposted this 311 referencing Biden committing treason. 311 or 113, Laken Riley is dead because Joe Biden and company committed treason on America. Article 4, Section 4 of our Constitution requires our government to protect and defend our borders. If government does not, the Constitution, by virtue of the name part herein, authorizes the free citizens to defend themselves and their state in place of treasonous government. Note, in not defending our borders, government gives aid, comfort to hostile foreign invasion, and this, under Article 3, Section 3 of the Constitution, is properly labeled treason. And what's the punishment for treason? Anybody guess? Head to Gitmo. Do not pass go. Do not collect any money. And if you're found guilty with that quick court, you're gone. All right. Elon Musk, the far left U.S. administration is using your tax dollars to fly violent criminals into America. Bill Melligan said, per Department of Homeland Security sources to me and Griff Jenkins, the Haitian man arrested for raping a 15-year-old disabled girl at a migrant hotel in Massachusetts last Wednesday night came to the U.S. via the Biden administration's parole program for Haitians, which allowed him to fly into JFK Airport in New York City. Okay. All of this is playing out. Just throwing this out there, Elon Musk is one of the biggest military industrial complex contractors. The deep state used Twitter as its back channel through its direct message servers to communicate and overthrow the U.S. government to seize control of the military. The military instruct Elon to purchase Twitter to seize control of the DM servers, thus gaining control over the deep state. Q is a military industrial complex psyop to awaken the public of corruption in government and to keep the public informed of future events. Future proves past. Military is the only way. It's biblical. Okay? Now remind those that might be new to this. You've heard that before, and you said, I heard that it was a bad psyop, whatever. If you watch mainstream media, all they do is attack, put negative things out about Q. But you know what? As a journalist, you're supposed to cover both sides and let people decide. Nope, that's all they do is use it on the negative side. And it's sickening. Riggs said 11.3, upon their arrest announcement of Mr. Podesta, actionable 11.4, Podesta in Italy, a title given to any various holders of public office at different periods as a city governor, mayor, civic magistrate, or other. Beijing, Biden, nothing can stop what's coming. The stage had to be set. All of this is playing out and more for us to see. Real Air Force patriot. Gitmo back in the news. President Trump expanded Guantanamo Bay while the Democrats were fighting to close it. It's surprising that Biden didn't close it since that was an Obama initiative, and now they're preparing to use Gitmo as a processing center for Haitian migrants. Quite ironic, since the Biden regime and the rest of the war criminals will be filling up those cells. Army General Laura Richardson stated everything is refreshed, the equipment, everything's ready to go. There are no coincidences. And there's a picture of Camp Delta 1, maximum security. Oh, yeah. And check this out, the April 8th solar eclipse info. Hundreds of schools are going to be in the path of the war eclipse. So they're going to cancel classes over safety concerns. And the National Guard is to be here for the eclipse. Have you ever seen public schools closed for a solar eclipse? Strange. Who controls the National Guard? Why was the National Guard recently activated in select cities within the United States? Could be the eclipse, right? Can the National Guard work in coordination with the Marines? Do conditions need to be satisfied to authorize? What former president used the military to save the republic, and what occurred exactly? Biggest drop to ever be provided on polls. Study and prepare. The masses tend to panic in such situations. We should not.
Lethal drugs.
We should not at all. Fletch 17 showed us this, the eclipse on 4/8/24, April 8/24. Why they closing the schools, telling folks to stock up on supplies. Here's a delta for that date that stuck out to me. That would be April 8th, 2020. Delta would be to the day 4 years ago. The armor of God. The world will soon understand. Good catch, Fletch. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places. What's with the 8th? How come every time we see months, each month, guys, remember we always say something strange happens on the 8th of each month. 2022, July 8th, Shinzo Abe. August 8th, Mar-a-Lago raided by FBI. September 8th, Queen Elizabeth died. October 8th, Crimea Bridge collapsed. November 8th, Rothschild died. December 8th, major Twitter files drop. 2023, January 8th, insurrection. February 8th, Twitter oversight. April 8th, French protests. May 8th, China announces gold-backed currency. June 8th, Trump indicted. July 8th, Dutch government collapses. August 8th, Maui fires. September 8th, 17, speaking, and just hasn't been there since he spoke at Mount Rushmore, where he did something big, but it hasn't been disclosed yet. Closest city to Mount Rushmore is Keystone. That's a lot of dots, folks. A lot of dots. More and more things are playing out. Let's see. Let's go over to the Dutch MEP, exposing child trafficking, since we're talking about the trafficking, especially in Haiti. I'm going to play this and speak over him for translation. Here we go. All these reports about Ukrainian children being deposed to Russia are pure propaganda, he says. Russia has taken in millions of Ukrainian refugees, including, fortunately, hundreds of thousands of children who were and are being bombed by the Ukrainian army. The parliament must speak out against these Ukrainian war crimes. Remember, he's in the EU Parliament, folks, in case you're listening. He says the International Criminal Court should prosecute Zelensky for it. Moreover, Ukraine is the largest supplier of children for pedophile networks, human trafficking and organ trafficking. It has child kennels with surrogate mothers for this purpose. And people are booing and hissing because they don't want this information out. These sick people, instead of sitting back and listening to him, they'd rather boo and hiss him because he's bringing out truth. Sickening. Let's continue. In Russia, and he's breathing hard, trying to get this out, children receive a traditional upbringing and education. In the West, they get transgender indoctrination, hormone blockers, and genital mutilation. The hypocrisy is appalling. The West must stop the warmongering. And then they kick him out. Marcel Delgraff. What courage. And then they cut him off. And he gets shut down. You see that? You bring out the truth, trying to help fight for the children, no matter what comes out. These politicians are so exposed. There have been about 400,000 of these unaccompanied children that have come to the United States during President Biden's term of office.
There have been about 400,000 of these unaccompanied children that have come to the United States during President Biden's term of office. Can you tell us where they are now?
We can give you information on the vetting process and
no, I ask you, you know where they are now?
As I said to you, we can tell you who the vetted sponsors were that received
That's
these
not
kids.
what I asked you.
He doesn't know where they are. This is Mr. Corinne asking Javier Becerra. Also, just a reminder for this pedophilia stuff that's going on, the trafficking of children and more. Don Lemon particularly went into The View to be consoled and comforted, but I'm going to show you a little bit of that in a minute because he's upset because Elon got rid of him. Well, you know, about 10, 11 years ago, he was trying to support pedophilia.
No doubt. What was revealed during the Jerry Sandusky case is horrifying, but a CNN.com commentary raises a thought-provoking question. Should pedophiles be extended some measure of sympathy? Are we doing enough to identify and help pedophiles before they victimize our children? Dr. James Cantor wrote that commentary. He is a psychologist and a senior scientist at the Center for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto, and he joins us now. Doctor, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
I want to ask you something, and I know people are going to probably send me a lot of email for this. I've never been one to take glee in anyone's demise. And when I saw Jerry Sandusky walk out in handcuffs, I did kind of feel a bit sorry for him, even though I know the jury found him to do some horrific things. I was like, his life is over. All of these young boys, it was terrible for them as well. There are no winners. In your piece, you say someone has no choice to be a pedophile, but someone can choose to not be a child molester. So
there's your sickening guy, just to remind you who he is. Don Lemon, who demanded the sun, the moon, and the stars from SpaceX boss Elon Musk before being unceremoniously dumped this week, the Post learned. That would be last week now. So he heads over to The View, the demonic witchcraft that they play out there, the coven, and he wants to appeal to their audience so that they feel sorry for him.
Challenged him on that. And you asked me what he didn't like, and it's really facts.
It's this.
Right?
Okay.
So this is, can I set it up for you? So this is what you remember what happened to the Alaskan Airlines plane when the door fell off?
Yeah.
And then there was a woman pilot, the woman who was piloting the plane, but they landed safely. And then he tweeted about it saying basically saying DEI was making the skies unsafe, less safe.
She landed it safely.
But that was my point.
So he's going after Elon Musk, saying that he's basically supporting DEI, has problems, blah, blah, blah. They discuss it. I can't stand hearing it all. But then they always say conspiracy, and then listen to the conspiracy they bring up.
I know. We know what you mean.
I think somebody got to him.
I think somebody got to him, Elon Musk. Isn't that conspiracy?
You think
He knew what he was getting into, and then
he thought he
come on, he's not stupid. He knew what he was hiring. Somebody got to him.
Swisher calls him a toddler child. What did you call him?
Watch. You're gonna
thanks
see.
to Don Lemon. His full interview with Elon Musk, by the way, premieres Monday.
Yeah. Bring the celebrities out. Get people to follow him and more. What's happening in our world over at the inflation side? At least 23.98% of your wealth has been visibly seized by the government since January 2020. There it is, right in front of you. As a matter of fact, here's some more.
There's a number of experts who say the high cost of living we're all experiencing now is forcing a record number of people to tap into their 401ks early for extra financial help.
Now, according to the investment management company, the Vanguard Group, about 13% of its customers took out a 401k loan last year. They also found more than 3.5 of its plan participants took early withdrawals.
What's happening? We had to discuss about this discussion with this yesterday, interview with Dr. Kirk Elliott. And you don't want to miss it. DoD control of silver over gold, and more of what people are facing day in and day out in this crazy world financially with silver and more. You can go to amweknow.com gold, reach out to Dr. Kirk Elliott anytime and his team, and they will help you out.
So they'll get you on with one of our consultants. We have like 11 schedulers, and the cloud drive deep. They'll hear your goals and what you want, and then how to using tangible assets, physical silver to protect your portfolio. So
it's amazing. Talk about silver separate here. It could outperform gold to hit a 10-year high and more. That just absolutely amazing. So you don't want to miss that. You can go back, and if you missed it from yesterday's interview, go check that out. Some other things that we have to stay on top of is, of course, related to the jabs and more. Folks have been affected. We know 143,233% surge in fatal cancers among vaxxed Americans. Official data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has revealed an alarming spike in fatal cancers among Americans who have received the COVID injections. I told you guys that we had friends who bragged about it. Really good friends we had for years, went out and bragged about getting the shots, and soon after that, cancer hit the family. I've seen my own mother-in-law got the jab, gone within a month. I've seen others who have paralyzed different parts of their bodies now and more. And so the embalmers see a lot more too. They're seeing clots up to 50% more in corpses.
A data analyst and former United States Air Force major played a survey to embalmers across the country. Just look at this graph number 4. He found that 72% of embalmers observed white fibrous blood clots in 2023 corpses. 72% observed these blood clots. What's going on here? And there's a lot more to go through. Well, joining us now is the data analyst and former United States Air Force major who conducted this study. Tom Haviland is with us. Tom, welcome to the program.
Grant, thanks for having me on the show to talk about this very important topic. And I'll just show the audience right here. Here's some of the clots that we're talking about. There are nasty, nasty looking clots, right? So they do exist. This all came to my attention the week of Thanksgiving of last year when that movie Died Suddenly came out. And about 6 or 7 embalmers in that movie said they were seeing those white fibrous clots. I wanted to see whether that was a real phenomenon or not. So I conducted a survey last year to see what embalmers were seeing in the year 2022. I sent out a link to a survey in SurveyMonkey to over 3 dozen national, regional, and state funeral director associations with hundreds of members underneath them. I also sent the email to over 1,700 funeral homes directly around the world, trying to get responses from embalmers around the world to see what they were seeing.
All right.
And the survey we did last year, Grant, had 3 main conclusions to it. About 7 out of 10 embalmers were seeing the white fibrous clots. The majority of them started seeing the clots in 2021 after the vaccines rolled out. And then some of these embalmers are seeing these clots in up to 50% or more of their corpses.
That's a lot. Also playing out. Sudden expected shit said, check this out. Altitude sickness. That's a new one. According to an actor, Greg Vahan, who's been regular on Days of Our Lives since 2012. He goes to Colorado for skiing and snowboarding trip for their spring break. But he began feeling tired, developing headaches and congestion, and experiencing shortness of breath after just one day out in the snowy mountains. He's the same one that put out that the New York Times showed his quote, vaccine, 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 vaccine. Dolly Parton saying this before she was vaccinated on camera. I'm begging you, please don't hesitate. He's hospitalized with health scare. My lungs were full of fluid. Altitude sickness is what they called it. Other folks out there bragging on social media. That's where we usually get these, right? They brag about it. They show the world, look, disinformation is deadly. Vaccine saves lives. But then he started requesting prayers for himself. In a doctor's office, suffered a medical emergency, involved pancreas and colon. Been in ICU, many surgeries. My health doesn't seem to be improving. These are the things that we're seeing more and more play out. Those that were telling us, making fun of us, saying, how dare you not go get this jab, pressured us, and now they don't want to be your friend anymore. A lot of them, many of them are facing some serious problems, and we just pray for them. We don't get upset with them, and we hope that they would recover, learn the truth, and find some help. All of this stuff playing out day in and day out allows us to see, are there any wake-up calls for us or any comms that continue to keep us moving forward? Of course, Grasshopper always does a great job. And we saw this post where there's a chip that old Biden tried to put out, a video that President Trump put out there. He can't golf. He's in trouble. Barry, you in trouble too? Do you believe this? Midnight Crumbs, crooked Joe Biden showing Biden fail at golf while Trump is winning bigly. John Solomon, Twitter link, Steele dossier, highly political, mostly untrustworthy. Barry, are you in trouble? Crooked Joe Biden's handlers. Now, what are the odds this truth talks about, not talking about golf? The tarmac deal with HRC and Loretta Lynch. Remember that? In this, we're told, my fellow Americans, over the course of the next several days, you will undoubtedly realize that we are taking back our great country, the land of the free, from the evil tyrants that wish to do us harm and destroy the last remaining refuge of shining light. These are posted at comms for us to see. 34 was part of this clip. 34-second clip. So you go to number 34 on the keyboard, and that's what you read. Confirmation to the public of what is occurring will then be revealed and will not be openly accepted. Rest assured, the safety and well-being of every man, woman, and child of this country is being exhausted in full. Organizations and or people that wish to do us harm during this time will be met with swift fury. Certain laws have been pre-lifted to provide our great military the necessary authority to handle and conduct these operations at home and abroad. At 26 seconds, Trump scores. And the crowd says, let's go. Let's go. You know that they'll do anything to try to bring fear to all of us. These comms continue to bring us comfort and more, especially when we go to the Word of God and we learn from Him and grow from Him. But we know as all this plays out, many people have lost their minds. They're being inducted into all types of MK Ultra mind control tricks. As a matter of fact, they try to get you in your mind with this, maybe this ad from the new Advil campaign to end systemic pain racism.
I should not have to beg my doctor to run tests or ask them to take another look.
Advil hosts a roundtable discussion about systemic pain bias in
Welcome to
healthcare.
Believe My Pain, a discussion about systemic pain bias in healthcare. I want to thank all of you for joining me today as we talk about this very important issue. I also want to thank the Pain Equity Project developed by Advil in partnership with the Morehouse School of Medicine and Black Health for inviting us to be a part of their commitment to addressing pain bias in Black communities.
All mind control, racism, and Advil. Who would have thought? How they play this out for all of us to see. Well, then you go over to concerts. Let's say you want to go see a concert from somebody that you grew up watching. The middle of Madonna's concert, SOF puts out, "My heart breaks for those who can't see." Evil has become so blatantly brazen now. The devil knows this time is running out. Madonna, you guys know, is the high priestess for Satan's church. This is a satanic ritual. The people attending have no idea. I'm just showing you what we're up against. As we continue to bring out the truth and expose evil, evil continues to get upset and say, you know what? We need to use our minions, our people, to get out as much fear as possible and to get into these brains to tell them what we're trying to do.
And the beast that ourselves like a leopard, its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth, and to it the dragon gave his power. Men worshipped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast.
He gave his authority to the beast, basically reading scripture. And they're showing the beast on the stage.
They worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast?"
And they're worshiping the beast and saying, who is like the beast, in case you can't understand what she's saying.
Fight against the beast, and the beast was given a mouth uttered with a haughty and blasphemous words. It was allowed to make war on the saints and to conquer them.
He was allowed to make war with the saints and conquer them.
And authority was given it over every tribe and the people.
And authority was given to him over every child,
And tongue and nation, and all who dwell
and every town and every nation.
worship it in vain.
Justify my love. So all along, these songs that she's been singing have actually been worship to her God, Satan. And yet many don't see it. But yet it's the mind games that they play on all of us. That's the fight that we have against evil. And I brought this up before, and I'll bring it up again as we get close to the end of this video. We are noticing more and more things play out that would cause us to possibly live in fear, or some people would say this must be the end or more. But we stay in prayer, and we stay encouraged, and we continue to look for those good things, the good news around us and more. One of those would be breaking in a unanimous ruling. SCOTUS rules that members of the public can sue the public officials for blocking or muting them on social media. The court establishes a new test for lower courts to determine if a public official's speech is a state action, writing they must possess the authority to speak for the state and purport to exercise that authority. Wow. I mean, there's some positive things going on. Very positive. Ultra Peppy Lives Matter reminds us as anonymous folks. We've seen more frustrating situations emerge in the news than the normal person by far. Seeing through all of this, it can take its toll. That's why many despair when they see an obvious criminal like Fannie Willis, right? As a matter of fact, it kind of reminds me, while I continue to read this, I was going to finish off with that. But I think it's important to show you some of the despair that might be playing out for all of us. So let me play this before we close. Are we all feeling it? I saw this clip. I thought it's important.
Like checked out from this planet. Like I'm done. I told God today, like I'm ready. I've been ready, but I'm like, I'm ready. Don't feel like there's anything that I care about anymore. I just want to go home. You know, I just want to be done. I don't want to battle all of the little battles anymore. I don't want to pay my taxes anymore because I know where the money's going. I don't want to go to the grocery store, spend $400 on 2 bags of organic produce that's probably injected with it now and sprayed full of glyphosate still, even though it got the organic label on it. Tired of battling everything. I did think about moving to another country, but, you know, I know the government corruption is everywhere. I mean, it would be nice to live in a place where I could just eat food and know it's not being poisoned, but it's just so exhausting. It's gotten to a point where I'm just mentally so tired. And I talk to a lot of people at work and everybody says the exact same thing. Like, we're on autopilot. Like, everybody's just doing the minimum that we need to do. And then just either going home and escaping or just numbing ourselves or just going to sleep or just whatever. And it's so sad. This isn't life. This isn't what life is supposed to be like. And I am so thankful that God is coming back soon, because that is the only thing, honestly, that is keeping me going, is him. And he is my strength right now. And I really do feel like he is coming back within, I would say honestly, a year at the most 2. I'm ready. I'm so done. This place is so ghetto now, and there's nothing rewarding about it. Evil's everywhere.
And so that is seemingly what's playing out in many people's lives. And it's hard. It's taken its toll, says Ultra Pep Lives Matter. That's why many despair when they see an obvious criminal treated with leniency. We want to see them handcuffed and get exactly what they deserve. It's tiring to witness the corruption inherent in our system, and many shake their heads in disbelief. But I will remind them that anonymous folks are awake. The normie populace has basically been force-fed a diet of red pills. Trump was right this entire time, and the most obvious chivalry ever conceived by mankind. We should not forget that we're watching a movie designed by God to awaken the sleeping populace. Right? We turn to God when everything else falls apart. That's what's happening. Many are. It's working. I truly believe God is setting the stage for something magnificent. I do too, Ultra Peppy Lives Matter. I do too. You just have to believe. Stay in the Word of God. Continue to pray.
For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you once again for all of those that you've surrounded around us to continue to stay encouraged. Thank you that we have the ability to gather in living rooms with those that are like-minded like us, to love on, to share information, to sit in the back porch and have conversations, to even have the ability to turn on our phone, go to a video conference with our friends, family, those who we love, to pray with them when things are falling apart. I lift up to you, Rafa just gave me a call recently from Woo's News to just ask, what's going on. Just wanted to call. I lift them up to you, as we all should. I lift up those that are continuing to live day by day. I'm looking even to the Young family in Texas and what they're dealing with the courts. Thank you for their love and their kindness, and thinking of them. Thinking of Deanna and Alex and their wonderful family with their move to Texas and their fight for the election. Thank you for their love. Thank you for the kindness of the thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, in prayer day after day on the front lines of this fight. You're so good to us. You're so good to us. And you continue to remind us through your word of your love, your patience with us, your grace, your mercy, and your forgiveness of our sins. How we're so undeserving. Yet you carry us through each day in your loving way. So grateful for that. We just ask for continued protection over those that are on the front lines, for our families, and so much more. We ask all this in the name of Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen and amen. Folks, I can't thank you enough for your help, your support, your subscribing, your following, your sharing, so much more. You know, we just get on here, do the best we can to gather information, give it out to you, in hopes that, you know, maybe we pick up a few gold nuggets here and there and we walk with it throughout the day and we learn and grow. Most encouraging thing is just hearing from folks that we've interviewed and more, saying we've got calls in, and you've got the most amazing folks in we know when they call. They're so loving, so kind. Just heard that from Dr. Lockley here recently too. She takes care of our family. It's been amazing. Amazing journey. We're looking forward to so much more. And again, thank you for your prayers and support. For now, this is LT saying Semperfi with we know. Signing out.
All right. That was we know. And I've been sitting here watching these comments. The original Q post, yes, the first 60 some odd Q posts were posted under the pseudonym of Anonymous, but they were not associated to Anonymous in any way, shape, or form. It was them learning the system and how they were going to use it. And then the Q came along after that. Actually, I'm just going to shut up. I'm just going to go to the next video because, frankly, I'm just not in the mood to deal with testy people. Really not. Up next, your Epstein blackmailed criminal government. That's what's next. Find some fucking hopium in that.
When people are compromised, it helps their career. I know of a number of people that have been compromised, and it's really helped their career. When I wrote the Franklin scandal, I spent 7 years on it, but I did get to one of the blackmail photographers. And I was relatively new into the story and trying to understand this very, very dark universe. And I said, how does this work? And he said, it's like you're on a yacht, and it's a beautiful day, and it's a beautiful yacht, and you can have anything that you want on this yacht. But if you decide to get off the yacht, the people on the yacht are going to make sure that you drown. So compromised politicians have zero incentive to get off the yacht.
Hey, friends, welcome back. Thank you so very much for tuning in. It's Sean from SGT Report here. That was prolific author Nick Bryant talking about the capture of our wholly corrupt government. Do you ever wonder why it's so corrupt and our country's in the process of total collapse? Well, this is why. Blackmail, and specifically sex blackmail, Epstein style. Friends, you're not going to want to miss this one. Spread it far and wide. Before we start, just a quick word about our sponsor. How do you feel like you eat a big meal? You know, digestive toxins that's in multiple foods that scientists sometimes eat, but that fraudulent food pyramid, and this toxin causes digestive issues. According to Dr. world-renowned cardiologist, it's affecting millions of people nationwide. One side of the weight gain, empathy, digestive discomfort, stiff joints, skin crawls. Dr. explains these side effects are often staying for normal signs of aging and digestive issues. They'll usually over years. The damage is probably being caused by health foods. It's far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. It's simple. You just have to know which foods are actually healthy and which contain individual toxins. So find out for yourself at gutcleanseprotocol.com/SGT. That's gutcleanseprotocol.com/SGT. Because after years of research, Dr. decided to release an informative video tablet for free and uninterrupted, showcasing exactly which foods you must avoid. So click below and find that video. It's gutcleanseprotocol.com/SGT. Hey, friends, welcome back. Thank you so very much for tuning in. It's Sean from SGTreport.com, thephaser.com, and of course, thelibertymill.com. Friends, I'm very eager to have this conversation with a new friend to the show, somebody who comes to me from a friend, my buddy Jimmy. Shout out to Jimmy. It's Nick Bryant, a prolific author. Let me just show you some of his work, friends. Confessions of a DC Madam, The Franklin Scandal, a story of power brokers, child abuse, and betrayal. And this one, Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon, Laurel Canyon, Covert Ops in the Dark Heart of the Hippie Dream. Guys, I happen to know a big part of that Laurel Canyon story is connected to the CIA. What isn't at this point, honest to God? And his new book, The Truth About Watergate, A Tale of Extraordinary Lies and Liars. I'm very eager to welcome to the show, Nick Bryant. How are you, sir?
It's good to be with you, Sean. And actually, I just wrote the forward for the Laurel Canyon book.
Oh,
But
is that right?
it's a very good book. I was proud to write the forward.
Give me a minute here. Machiavelli, prove it. Prove it. Prove that it was a psyop. Prove it right now. Prove it. Come on. I'm waiting. Prove it. Oh, yeah. It's so you want to share a link of somebody else's proof, right? I get so tired of this. I do. This one and this one here has got absolutely nothing to do with Q. Okay, got absolutely nothing to do with the drops or anything else. But that's where the conversation wants to go. Prove it. Yeah, this is what gets me. You know. So what? So what? So they're talking about Q. So what? What's your point? Have you done the research on all the questions that Q asked? Because Q wasn't feeding us information. Q was feeding us questions. Oh, so because you telling that it's fake, that's so all these all these folders of Q proofs that I have, okay, don't mean diddly squat. All of these, where is it? Am I on the wrong one? I am on the wrong one, ain't I? Yeah, let me get to here. Come on. Why aren't you changing? And these two hard drives here, completely filled. And then my 500 terabyte hard drives. And, let's see. And then let's go to, I have the Operation Q files. Then let's go to, Q proofs, which would be the next one. All the PDFs, all the information, all the research and everything else, all of it. Yeah. So it's all a fucking psyop. Dude, get the fuck out of the chat. Get the fuck out of my chat. Just leave. Just get out. You want to talk shit about it, then you have no reason to be here, right? You don't have a reason to be here. Because you followed it all. You know all the answers. You know everything. So you have no reason to be here. Just go ahead and leave. Wow, all these new names just popping up in here. Now we got a naturopathy doc. How long have you been paranoid schizophrenia diagnosed? Wow. That's yeah. Here, let me help you find the door too. Here you go. See you later. And take your friend with you. There you go. You guys go find a video to watch together. Seems like that's what you're probably going to like the most, right? Anybody else? Yeah, get out and hit the like button on your way out.
Well, look, I'll be candid. As I said to you before I hit record, I feel woefully underprepared for this interview. And by the way, guys, I'm doing this interview from Mexico. And I just want to tell you all that Mexico has a very vibrant, healthy culture. It's GMO free. I haven't seen a chemtrail the entire time we're here. And guess what? Housing is quite a bit more affordable. So for all of you young people who really lament the fact that BlackRock and private equity in 2023 bought up 43% of all single family homes in the United States, as they try to prepare us for the Great Reset where you'll own nothing and be happy, Mexico is a viable alternative to the tyranny we're seeing in America. That's just my opinion. Any comments on what I just said there, Nick, about the decay and the decline of the culture in America?
Well, in our society, it's obviously an empire in decline because we know that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked underage victims for 25 years, and our government is doing nothing about it. And the mainstream media isn't calling for justice. And that really shows how perfidious our society has come. Now, you would never trust a child trafficker. You would never trust a person trafficking children or covering up the trafficking of children. You'd never trust a group that's trafficking children or covering up the trafficking of children. So our government is covering up child trafficking with Epstein. None of those perpetrators have been indicted, and none of those procurers and pimps have been indicted except for Ghislaine Maxwell. As Americans, how can we trust our government to do what's right for us? And the congressional approval rating is 17% right now. So 83% of Americans are dissatisfied with their government. And when you think about that, 83%, and what does our government do? Our government passes laws.
And real quick, just to let everybody know, I absolutely know that Q is a psyop. Okay. But it's not the type of psyop that you think it is. Okay. It was an awakening. Okay. So let's go ahead and throw this out there. Okay. The intent was to reach those who have been so embedded in video games. Okay. In video games. Okay. That's who they were going after. Okay. They were going after the awakening of young people so buried in games that maybe, just maybe, they could awaken them and get them doing something productive. Okay. Instead of being buried into games like The Sims or even Call of Duty or World of Warcraft, all of that. Okay. And there are games out there that I don't even know the names of that people have been so entwined in that basically they could be lost in them for years. Okay. I was lost in World of Warcraft for a year and a half. Okay. I was. I'm not gonna deny it. It was when I got my first character to level 90. Okay. It was that's when I said, okay, it's time for me to take a break. Okay, it's time for me to take a break. And then I went back and they changed the whole damn game on me. I was pissed. I was mad or no. Oh yeah. Then I was like totally pissed off. Okay. But this is the thing, is that when it was introduced, the way that it was introduced, okay, that a lot of the 4chan and 8kun, okay, were being used as ways for Ages of Empires, that's a good one too. But those platforms, a lot of them were being used to kind of give clues to each other on how to get through stuff, right? And to leave pieces for other people to find, okay? And gamers stumbled across it. Okay. And the thing is it did work. It did work. Okay. It got them out of the games and then trying to solve real problems, trying to find solutions or trying to find information that was going to clarify the real world around them before it was too late, before even that world became so corrupted that they would never have anything to hold on to, and they would just have to go back into their game, and that would be the only environment that they could live in. Okay. Q opened that up. Okay. Open that up. Okay. And what it did was it actually worked better than they thought that it would, because the older gamers, guys like me, older, okay, 50s and 60s, okay, started looking into this stuff. Okay. And then Q reminded us how to research, how to find things. Okay. Reminded us. Okay. And once we were reminded, then from that point on, it was an uphill climb through every single drop that came out to get all of the processing of information, decoding, the breakdown of the decode, and then being able to translate it so that everybody could understand it. Okay. Now, again, like I said, I said to that person, I said, prove to me that Q was a psyop. And, it's, if you don't have proof right there on hand, you shouldn't be running your mouth about it. Okay. Okay. But the fact of the matter is what he was doing was belittling people who have followed Q. Okay. Now, following Q is not like following Christ. Okay. Following Q is not like following Christ. Okay. It's that simple. When you're following Q, you were getting asked questions, and it was up to you to come up with the answers. And sometimes you could post something to the board and Q would respond. And we see the interaction in a lot of the posts between Anons and Q. We see those questions come up. We see the frustrating comments too. Okay. And Q's response. Okay. But the thing is that as we were coming forward with the information that we found in research, Q was adding it to the post so that the next group of people were seeing, oh, wait, what's this? Now 90% of those links are all dead now. Okay. Because, all the platforms removed as much of that information as they possibly could. Okay. But the fact of the matter is that, yes, it was a psyop, but it was specifically started to awaken one age group, okay, one particular type of autist. And what it did was it caught on to the autist in all of us old people too. They didn't expect that. So between the young people going at it and us old guys going at it, guys and gals, the same. Okay. We were finding more answers, okay, to more of those questions than the younger people were. Finding them quicker. But we were also able to break them down in a way that those kids could turn around and say, oh, I get it. And then they could look themselves. Okay. And it's just, I'm just saying. Okay. But I'm not going to have somebody sitting in chat just running their mouth like that. I'm just not going to do it. I don't have time for stuff like that. All right. Okay. I'm going to back this up a minute and let them go. Here we go.
How perfidious our society has come. Now, you would never trust a child trafficker. You would never trust a person trafficking children or covering up the trafficking of children. You'd never trust a group that's trafficking children or covering up the trafficking of children. So our government is covering up child trafficking with Epstein. None of those perpetrators have been indicted, and none of those procurers and pimps have been indicted except for Ghislaine Maxwell. As Americans, how can we trust our government to do what's right for us? And the congressional approval rating is 17% right now. So 83% of Americans are dissatisfied with their government. And when you think about that, 83%, and what does our government do? Our government passes laws that infringe upon our constitutional rights via spying. Our government is passing laws that aid and abet the wealth polarization. So, and I believe I've written 3 books on political blackmail, CIA honey traps. And I think that a lot of our politicians are compromised, and they're not working in the best interests of the American people. They're working in the best interests of the intelligence industrial complex that has them compromised. And it's interesting. I've been saying for years that our politicians are compromised. And in December, a federal representative from Tennessee, Tim Burchett, came out and said, my colleagues are being blackmailed, sexually blackmailed. And I've been waiting for a politician to say that for many years. So I'm really glad that one said it.
Yeah, well, me too. And I think it's never been more clear to the American people, at least those who can think, at least those who are intellectually honest, and at least those who give a damn about the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, that, you know what, this isn't our government anymore. The government has been hijacked. And it seems to me at this point, the CIA is running the show. I mean, I could cite numerous examples of that, not the least of which is this Epstein case, where, as you note, there has been no justice. And by the way, guys, in 2020, The Age, an Australian newspaper, reported that Epstein's child victims were as young as 11 years old. Here's the problem. There are therapists who had clients who were tortured and abused by Epstein under the age of 10. And by the way, any attempt to receive compensation for the abuse for the Epstein victims has been rejected. And I think in large part, that's why this good man, Nick Bryant, has started a new 501c3 called Epstein Justice to seek justice for the victims of Epstein and his co-conspirators. Let me start with a screen share. I just think this will further spark the conversation because everybody is waking up to the fact that pedophiles seem to run the world, because pedophiles, at least the elite ones, are never, ever brought to justice. And the people you see before you, friends, we've got spirit cooker Marina Abramovic on the right, Lady Gaga on the left. We live in an upside down world. And as the Bible says, it would be better for you to put a millstone around your neck and cast yourself into the depths of the ocean than to hurt one of these little ones that otherwise would believeth in me. So where would you like to begin with Epstein's crimes? I guess I'd ask you, is the man still alive?
I don't believe so. I believe that Jeffrey Epstein is dead. People have said that he's still alive, and I've asked for any kind of evidence pertaining to that, and I haven't found any.
Can I share something with you?
Go for it.
I know that was a bizarre question, because the better question would be, did Epstein actually kill himself? I think we know the answer to that. At the very least, he was suicided. But it's Megyn Kelly. Remember Megyn Kelly from Fox News?
I do remember her.
She's still alive and kicking now that she's not at Fox News. She's got her own podcast, her own show. Apparently it does very well. And believe it or not, just a couple of months ago, she said, we will be hearing from.
So once again, Beef Stick Jones, never seen you before in my chat ever. First time I've ever seen your name in my chat. Just saying. Never seen you in my chat before. How you doing? Good to see you. I get your point. Okay, but you get mine? Okay. I come on and I bring information here. People who've been censored off of the tube and censored off of Facebook, I bring it back to them so that everybody gets to hear them. but I swear I've never seen your name before in my chat, ever. Beefstick is the ultimate lurker. I'm not mad. I'm just saying I've never seen you before in my chat. So just he's not saying anything because he thinks I'm going to throw him out. I'm not going to throw you out. You're being respectful. You are. You know. Yeah. I'm just Yeah. I'm just at that point where I'm just like ready to not take shit from anybody anymore. I've been doing this way too long, way too many hours, especially today. You know, I've already done a 9-hour show today. Okay. And now I'm doing another one, you know, so, you know, and, you know, yeah, but trolls come in and they drop their shit and, you know, and it's like, I'm just done with all that. I'm done with all of it. I don't have the patience for it anymore. You know, what I'm trying to do is keep those who are awake informed is what I'm trying to do. That's it. You know, I can't fix the normies that aren't willing to wake up. You know, your name used to be Michael. Okay. All right. Oh, just Michael. Okay. Now I know who you are. All right. Right on, brother. All right. Glad to have you with us, man. All right. Here we go.
Jeffrey Epstein this year. Stay tuned. That made my head spin. Megyn Kelly said that. We will hear from Epstein soon. Think about it. All the cameras went down. There was no camera footage that day in that highly secured facility. And who knows what happened to the man? Maybe they jailbroke him.
I wrote a book about a interstate child trafficking network called the Franklin Scandal, a story of power brokers, child abuse, and betrayal, which Epstein is basically a carbon copy of. It's when you start looking at the similarities, it's pretty amazing. There were two pimps in that network. One was Lawrence King of Omaha, Nebraska, and one was Craig Spence of Washington, D.C. And Spence was a CIA asset, and his home was wired for audiovisual blackmail, much like all of Epstein's homes seem to have been wired for audiovisual blackmail. And he was given a choice. I firmly believe that Spence was given a choice when there was a lot of publicity around him, because if you're a blackmailer, you just cannot become a topic of a lot of media gossip, because that's going to end your ability to blackmail people. And that's what happened to Craig Spence. I believe that's what happened to Jeffrey Epstein. They expended their utility. And with Craig Spence, it's on the internet that he was suicided, but I believe that he was given a choice. Either you can kill yourself or we can kill you. And when I'm talking about that choice, I'm talking about some rogue element of our intelligence that compromises people and has no morality whatsoever because it uses children. There's no line in the sand there. And I think that was the same deal that was probably made with Epstein. Either you kill yourself or we'll help you to kill yourself. And Epstein he was no longer a blackmailer. He couldn't, there was just too much press on him. And as we speak, there are other Epsteins and other Craig Spences running pedophile networks, transporting kids around to the rich and the powerful. Because I've been researching this for 22 years and I've written a lot about it. And wherever there is a demand, there is a supply.
It's horrific. And, you just sparked the thought, too, that under this current administration, Pedo Joe and his administration, Mayorkas, the whole team, they have allowed 85,000 immigrant children to be trafficked over the border, and those children have vanished. So now our own government is facilitating the trafficking and the slavery of children in this world. And I got to tell you, like I said earlier in the interview, this is not our government, my friend. This is a corporate government, a crown corporation maybe, but these people are so hopelessly corrupt that I think we're very much like Rome right before the total collapse.
We are an empire that's in decline. And when you talk about facilitating child trafficking, that's been going on for a very long time. Excuse me. The CIA used children in its MK Ultra experimentation. with the Franklin scandal, the CIA used children to blackmail people. With Epstein, the CIA used children to blackmail people. So we are an empire in decline, unfortunately, but I don't think it's too late. I really don't think it's too late. We can save ourselves. I firmly believe that Americans, if they congeal, can save themselves. And that's why we started Epstein Justice, which is a 501c3 organization, which you talked about. And what we want is a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to answer two very simple questions. We want the perpetrators or the alleged perpetrators in the Epstein network to be prosecuted. We want the child molesters in the Epstein network to be prosecuted. And we want the government to tell us why it's covering up child trafficking. And when you cover up a crime, you're aiding and abetting that crime. So we want the government to tell us why it's aiding and abetting child trafficking. We want those two simple things. And this is an issue that everyone can come around. Right now, the left and the right are so polarized. The people on the left think the people on the right have lost their mind, and the people on the right think the people on the left have lost their minds. I believe that children being trafficked with impunity, and it's being aided and abetted by the government, I believe that this is the only issue that can bring the right and the left together. And if we do have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, we can get a lot of people out of the government that shouldn't be there because they're compromised. And that's where we have to start. We have to start we have to start exposing these various people that are compromised in our government, or else it's just they're going to take us off a cliff.
Yeah. Well, we have been exposing them, and I'll provide a couple of examples for you. And I know that you're familiar with all of this, but we have been exposing them. But the mainstream horror media ignores the crimes of the elite like Pedo Joe. His own children say he's a pedophile. And by the way, Hillary Clinton and John Podesta, those WikiLeaks emails, which implicated them in what I think are very nefarious activities. And of course, John Podesta was very chummy with Marina Abramovic. And by the way, it was the Clintons who came to the aid of Laura Silsby when she was caught at the border in Haiti trying to traffic out 33 children. It was Bill and Hillary Clinton that defended her and got her an attorney and got her off. I think she got 6 months for that crime. Anybody else would have got 6 or 16 years, maybe life in prison. So again, the connections to people in our government at the highest levels. It's no wonder. You say we want our government to come clean on this? Our government is up to this stuff to their eyeballs. Nick?
And it's unfortunately, it's both parties. The Epstein cover-up has wended through George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and now Joe Biden. There's been 4 presidential administrations, 2 Republican, 2 Democrat, that have covered up child trafficking. And at this point, we have to say, as Americans, no, you can't do that anymore. Our government cannot cover up child trafficking. I'm familiar with that Laura Silsby case, and she was trying to sneak 33 kids out of Haiti. And she said that they were orphans, and actually they were not orphans. And what's really interesting is she ostensibly started a charity where these kids were going to be placed, but there was no charity. I mean, it was all a lie. And you're right, Bill Clinton did go to bat for her. And the people that she was trafficking those kids with were let out of jail immediately. And I think that her sentence was even less than 6 months. And Bill Clinton went to bat for her and got her off the hook with the Haitian authorities. Really, that's really, really tragic.
Yeah, it's really, really horrific. And we're going to move on in just 1 second. I want to show a slide that Nick sent me. But I really want people to understand the legacy of the Clintons. So I'll just play this B-roll, and I'd like to get Nick's comment on it. Haiti has completely collapsed. Haiti has completely collapsed, and cannibals and gangs are now running the country. And it was the Clintons and the Bushes who got tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in donations after that devastating earthquake. When was that earthquake, Nick? Like 2009, 10, 11? I just remember there was a telethon.
I think it was 2010.
There's a telethon with Bill Clinton and George Bush Sr. I recall, maybe it was George Bush Jr. They raised tens of millions of dollars. The Haitian people got nothing. They got none of it. Now the country has collapsed and cannibals are on the loose. This is the legacy. This is the legacy of the Clintons, Nick.
The thing about Haiti is our government has caused so much damage to that country. The Haitians actually had a very good president, Aristide, and our CIA said to him, we can either fly you out of the country or, we can kill you. And we've been bolstering dictators in Haiti forever, first with Papa Doc and then Baby Doc. And I think just about everybody but Aristide, who's been a president of Haiti since then, has been obsequious to the United States. And Haiti is an example of what happens when our corporate and military take over a country. And it just sucks the lifeblood out of it and sucks the democracy. Because Haiti really hasn't been a democracy since Aristide left, at least in my opinion. And you see this time and time again, these multinational corporations that are backed up by the CIA. I mean, it started in Guatemala. It might have even started earlier. Actually, I believe it started earlier, according to Smedley Butler. But you've got these multinational corporations that are beholden to no one, and they exploit all kinds of people in the third world. And if the people want to take that country back, and there's lots of examples of it, when the people want to take that country back, we bring in the jackals, and leaders get murdered.
Yeah.
And there's many examples of that.
Yep. And it always leads back to the CIA. It reminds me of the book by John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Yeah.
Yes.
If these leaders don't play ball, they die. So typically they'll take the bribes and they'll sell out their nations. And that is frankly what we're seeing now today in our own country, isn't it? I think actually we've just hit the nail on the head. I think that the CIA has probably gotten to a lot of the leaders in our government by way of sexual blackmail, honeypots, whatever, or just straight out blackmail. You're going to go our way with the New World Order, or we will kill you. I mean, that is the playbook from, Confessions of an Economic Hitman and the jackals you just described. I think the jackals have been loosed on our own government. So, who in the government has the power to stand up to these people at this point? Can you name 3 honest people in our government? I'll give you one, maybe Rand Paul. Who else?
Tim Burchett, for sure, who came out with the statement, as I said earlier, that his colleagues were being blackmailed. His colleagues in the House were being blackmailed. And I think that, given that our congressional approval rating is 13%, I don't know how many people we can trust. Dennis Hastert is a great example. He was Speaker of the House for 7 years, from 1999 to 2006. But he had predatory behavior going back 40 years. He had been molesting little boys for years. And then he became a sudden political star. I mean, his rise was meteoric. And we also know that when he was Speaker of the House, there was a FBI whistleblower named Sibel Edmonds. The FBI knew exactly what he was up to when he was Speaker of the House. And I find it amazing that when people are compromised, it helps their career. I know of a number of people that have been compromised, and it's really helped their career, their political career, because they can be trusted. I got to when I wrote the Franklin scandal, I spent 7 years on it, but I did get to one of the blackmail photographers, and I was relatively new into the story and trying to understand this very, very dark universe. And I said, how does this work? And he said, it's like you're on a yacht, and it's a beautiful day, and it's a beautiful yacht, and you can have anything that you want on this yacht. But if you decide to get off the yacht, the people on the yacht are going to make sure that you drown. So compromised politicians have zero incentive to get off the yacht because they know that their lives will crash and burn, especially if they've been compromised with children. They will never get off the yacht. And that's why we have to, as Americans, really bore into this, into Epstein, and then we'll come across the cesspool. And once we come across the cesspool, then we'll be able to drain it.
Yeah.
But that's gonna take a lot of people, but we're ready. I mean, I've talked to people all over the country, and I speak at anti-trafficking conferences. We're ready. Americans are ready, whether they're on the right or the left. They're ready, and
Yeah.
Epstein is an issue that we can all agree on.
Yeah, 100%. And we're all so fed up with bought and paid for politicians. It really makes you wonder, maybe who got to somebody like Dan Crenshaw, that one-eyed wonder, who always votes against what we actually want as conservatives and people who want to save this nation. He always stands with the rhinos. And it really ticks me off. And by the way, circling back to Epstein, John McCain's wife, wasn't it Cindy McCain who said, we all knew what was going on with Jeffrey Epstein, but nobody did a damn thing about it. Let me just show you this slide, guys, because I didn't even realize there was an Epstein Victims Compensation Fund, but it doesn't seem to matter. They're not paying out any of the victims. So what say you about anything I just said there, my friend?
Well, the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund is a great cover-up tool. David Boies was one of the architects of it, and I've written about David Boies, and actually I've done a podcast on David Boies. He's an attorney that likes to destroy people. So he all of a sudden found this altruistic streak, and he wants to help the Epstein victims. And 225 women have applied for relief from the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund, or I should say compensation. And 150 have been granted compensation, and only 132 have taken compensation. And as you were talking about earlier, I know two therapists, and one's a hugely esteemed therapist who had clients under the age of 10 that Epstein was trafficking. And they were shunned by the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund. And the reason why they were shunned is because the cover story with Epstein is that the girls were 14 years old. I mean, that's how the media and the government have tried to clean Epstein up. I mean, 14 years old is unbelievably heinous and egregious, but yes, there are victims of Epstein that are under 10. And Epstein was a psychopath, and he was pandering children. I mean, if you wanted a child under the age of 10, Epstein would definitely provide it to you. So when these women get settlements from the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund, they sign their names, and they are not allowed to sue any other perpetrators. And that's a great tool to make sure that these Epstein victims don't go after the perpetrators, and that there's no depositions. So there's no discovery. They've just given up the right to that. And actually, that fund is doing what the government can't. It's shutting up victims of Jeffrey Epstein.
Guys, apologies for this real quick break and a word about our sponsor. Have you ever wondered what happened to the legendary Chuck Norris? You know, I recently saw a video he made, and I was shocked. He's in his 80s, and he's still kicking butt and working out and staying very active. What's even more shocking is he's stronger. Evidently, he can work out longer, and he has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids. He did this by making one change. He says he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger. Her body looks leaner, and she has energy all day. Chuck made a very special video that explains everything. Make sure you watch it by going to chuckdefense.com/SGT or click the link below this video. It will change the way you think about your health. Once again, that's chuckdefense.com/SGT, and click the link in the description box below to watch the video now. You won't believe how simple it is. Watch his method. The link to the free video is below. chuckdefense.com/SGT. Well, let me ask you this. When we think of Little St. James and the flight logs for the Lolita Express, very, very famous names, powerful people were on that list. We don't have to go through the whole list, but Bill Clinton certainly comes to mind. What do you think? Can you speculate what was going on that island? And what do you know about the tunnels? How nefarious do you think things got on that island specifically? Because it's my understanding that after all this went down and Epstein became sort of a mainstream news item, the tunnels were all backfilled. They were destroyed or filled with cement. I think it's all been covered up. Do you know anything about that? How nefarious was it on that damn island?
Well, that island was the place of orgies for sure. Sarah Ransom has written a book. She's an Epstein victim, and she really gets into just how vicious Epstein and Maxwell were on that island. And I've talked to another Epstein victim, Juliette Bryant, who was on that island. And one thing that really hasn't translated with the mainstream media's coverage of that island, or just Epstein and Maxwell in general, they were vicious. They were vicious people to these girls. I mean, really vicious. And I don't know what to make of. Yes, there were tunnels, and the tunnels have been filled in. I don't know what to make of that. I only try to go places where I have evidence, so I don't know what to make of that. But I will say this: there was a lot of blackmail that went down on that island, and there were a lot of orgies. And as I said, going back to the yacht analogy, on that island you could have anything that you want, and Epstein would gladly provide it to you.
Yeah. Is it your speculation that those orgies involved children?
Absolutely. They definitely involved minors. Virginia Giuffre, who was an Epstein victim, was trafficked, and she sued Ghislaine Maxwell. And the documentation that's come out of her case, she was definitely a minor when she was involved in being sexually abused and molested at Epstein's Island.
Well, let me do another screen share. A lot of this goes down the memory hole, and then as I speak with an expert like you, some of it comes back to me. Epstein got a heck of a sweetheart deal the first time he was ever in the news, when he was, I guess, arrested and prosecuted to some small extent for being involved in this type of activity. I think he was on home arrest. I mean, he just got this, oh no, he got to like visit the jail for 8 hours a day and then leave at night or something. It was just preposterous. And now my understanding is that attorneys are covering up and helping perpetuate this lie. How are the lawyers perpetuating the cover up?
Well, the lawyers have put together the Epstein Victims Compensation Fund, which is basically the final stanza of the Epstein cover up. Because, as I said earlier, the victims that sign away, that get money from that compensation, sign away their ability to prosecute any other perps. And it's been highly selective, and we don't know. We just don't know what's the criteria. It's very clandestine. But that Epstein Victim Compensation Fund is being used by those attorneys for cover up. And actually, there's one attorney named Stan Pottinger who's involved with the Epstein victims, and he's really dirty. I made a PowerPoint on Stan Pottinger, and he is, the PowerPoint was released during one of my podcasts. Your listeners can go to my website and see the Stan Pottinger podcast. I call it the Cleanup Crew, because wherever there's a cover up, there's a cleanup. Now, what you showed there was the search warrant that the Palm Beach Police Department used when they busted Epstein. And he was busted on, they knew of 5 victims, and then they had 12 corroborating victims. And they wanted to bust Epstein on 5 counts of child abuse. And they had the evidence. They've been working on this case for a year. And that case was suddenly taken away from them by the state of Florida, and the state of Florida impaneled a grand jury. And that's very rare that grand juries are impaneled for anything other than capital offenses in Florida. And what happened there, grand juries, I don't know if your listeners and viewers are familiar with the machinations of a grand jury, but a special prosecutor is chosen in a grand jury, and he's the one that decides what evidence and what witnesses the grand jurors are going to hear from. And the grand jurors are just simply citizens that have shown up for jury duty and been funneled to a grand jury. And the special prosecutor is in a place where whatever evidence he shows the grand jurors, they will act upon. And there was a New York State Supreme Court justice that said, special prosecutors of grand juries have so much power over grand juries that they could get them to indict a ham sandwich. And that's what happened with the Epstein grand jury. There was an Epstein grand jury, and Barry Kirshner was the special prosecutor. Now, at that point, the law enforcement knew of 22 victims, and if Kirshner was at all sensible, he would have called at least 5 of the victims that the Palm Beach Police Department had statements from, but he only called 1 of the victims, and skewered her. And that's why that grand jury said that Jeffrey Epstein hadn't molested a single child. It was because of his corruption. And what happened, one of the stand-up guys in this story is Michael Ryder. He was the chief of the Palm Beach Police Department, and he took a lot of heat. He was followed, he was harassed, but he was not backing down. Actually, those police officers in the Palm Beach Police Department, like Ricari, they did not back down. And Michael Ryder made so much noise about it that the feds got involved. And this is where there's a telltale. Now, the feds had a list of over 30 victims, and I've got that list, redacted list that I sent you. So they knew of 30 victims, and what they did was how they became corrupt was Alexander Acosta was the U.S. attorney for Southern Florida, and he was told not to prosecute Epstein because Epstein was in intelligence and it was above his pay grade.
Yep.
And Acosta said that he was vetted by the Trump administration because he became labor secretary. And the Trump administration asked him, and that's what he said. And he's never denied saying that. Never.
Okay. So I agree. You hear me? I'm saying I agree. Okay. But while they're waiting for this, they should be castrated, and they should have to sit there without their junk until they're executed.
So it's obvious that rogue element of our intelligence did
A little
intervene with Epstein.
insult to injury.
And what ultimately happened is, so he was charged with 1 account of adult pandering by that grand jury, and then he was charged with after the feds intervention. All the feds didn't do anything to him after he was on 1 count of child abuse. So Epstein was looking at 20 years, and he was given 18 months. And as you were talking about, basically, and it was at a county jail, and he dressed his wing up like the Taj Mahal. He gave all kinds of money to the various officers, and he got to leave jail during the day, and he was molesting little girls during the day while he was ostensibly incarcerated.
Okay. Now somebody had to ask this. What about the women perps? Well, they should be super glued, closed, and stapled to make sure that they can't. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, we've documented on this show the fact that child sex abuse, child trafficking, and the cover-up of all of it go to the various highest levels of governments around the world. This is a big thing that's been going on in the UK for a very long time. I mean, Jimmy Savile being friends with Prince Charles. Jimmy Savile, a known trafficker, child abuser, pedophile, necrophiliac, totally evil man, worked for the BBC for 3 decades. His crimes against children always covered up at the highest levels. Sir Edward Heath, a former prime minister, implicated in the murder of as many as 16 children. He was said to be in a satanic cult. This was all made known only after his death. And then the Hampstead cover-up. I interviewed the mother of the Hampstead too, the mother Ella Draper. And what happened when she blew the whistle on the abuse of her children and the children provided testimony? The UK media went after the mother to defend the father, who was the accused abuser of those children. It's cover-up after cover-up after cover-up, Franklin cover-up, et cetera, et cetera. It gets us all the way back to Epstein. and Nancy Mace, that ABC News reporter, who said, we knew this 3 years ago, we had the goods on this guy, but ABC News quashed it. They would not let her report on the crimes of Epstein. I think this is all intelligence. See, it just proves the point. Intelligence agencies run the world at this point. I think that is what I've come to conclude after doing this for the past 15 years, Nick.
I think that you're most likely right. I mean, these networks that you're talking about, they're power broker pedophile networks. Yes. And there was a tremendous effort to out that network in the 80s, but the government stepped in and covered it up. And in the 90s, there was another power broker pedophile network that was covered up in Belgium. There's been one covered up in Portugal. There's been one covered up in Argentina. There's been one covered up in Mexico. So if these guys, and the thing about our politicians is that they're highly sexed, arrogant alpha males, and nothing makes people stupid like sex or arrogance. And these guys, you dangle something that they want in front of them that's illicit, and they go for it. They're very easy to compromise. Look at Bill Clinton, and actually Jeffrey Epstein was bringing women into the White House for Bill Clinton. So and that only came out, I think, within the last year. But Bill Clinton, he's a complete pervert, and his crimes were covered up. I mean, he managed to get 8 years of, he was the president for 8 years, when there had been a number of women in Arkansas that had accused him of rape or molestation. But these are the people that are running our world, that are at the apex of power. And as I said earlier, with the Dennis Hastert analogy, is that I believe that if you are compromised, it's going to help your career because you can be counted on. And once you're compromised, there's zero incentive to blow the whistle on anything. And how it works, and I've studied this for 22 years. People that are compromised generally vote with their constituency, but occasionally markers are called in where there's going to be a tight vote, and they have to vote for that, what that rogue element of intelligence tells them to vote for. And that's how it works. Generally, they vote with their constituency, but periodically markers are called in, and they have to vote with the way that rogue intelligence network tells them to vote.
Can I ask your opinion on something? I'm just curious if you think the person I'm about to mention is an agent of an intelligence agency somewhere in this world. Here's the thought. So Anthony Weiner's laptop, the rumor is there is a video that was on that laptop that was so atrocious that it made grizzled veterans of the NYPD weep. And it said that video included Uma Abedin and Hillary Clinton doing something absolutely horrific to a child. Now, I don't know if that's urban legend or if it actually exists, but here's what I find fascinating. Uma Abedin, you see, you mentioned that Bill Clinton is an absolute sicko. Well, of course we know that to be true, but I think his wife is as well. Let me do a screen share because here's the payoff to that story. Uma Abedin was the right hand to Hillary Clinton, and Uma Abedin is now dating billionaire heir Alex Soros, the heir to George Soros's fortune. I don't know, man. I just wanted to get your reaction to that. You can't make this stuff up. It reads like fiction, but there it is. The fact that she is now dating Alex Soros, to me, I think she's got intelligence written all over her.
Well, what's interesting is I acquired Epstein's Black Book in 2012, and then I published it on the internet in 2015. And how the Black Book emerged is Epstein's house manager, Alfredo Rodriguez, ripped it off. And he was trying to sell it to lawyers who were launching civil suits at Epstein for molesting their underage clients. And Alfredo Rodriguez called one of the attorneys and said, I will sell you this book for, I don't know, $50,000. I can't remember the exact amount. But the lawyer called the FBI, and the FBI did a sting. And subsequent to that, Rodriguez was arrested and the Black Book was impounded. And I was fortunate enough to have a source that gave me the Black Book. And so with that, I think it's really telling. Alfredo Rodriguez circled names in the Black Book that he thought or had witnessed that were in cahoots with Epstein. And one of the names that circled is Peter Soros. And Peter Soros is the nephew and heir apparent of the George Soros fortune empire. So it's really interesting that if you look at the Black Book and the names that are circled, it's pretty telling.
What a tangled web they weave. All right. Well, you know what? We're just scratching the surface here today. I do want to ask you about your new book. Let me show it here. The Truth About Watergate, A Tale of Extraordinary Lies and Liars. Boy, you know, what compelled you to write this book? Because I like a good old-fashioned conspiracy. And you know what went on with Watergate? Biden's crimes, to me, make the Watergate break-in look like a college frat brothers prank, Nick. So I hope you write a book about the treason and crimes of Joe Biden and the current administration. But what compelled you to write The Truth About Watergate?
Okay, so I'd written 2 books on CIA honey traps, and at the center of Watergate is a CIA honey trap. And most people don't know that. It's been covered up very well. So I started, after Confessions of a DC Madam, I started looking into that particular honey trap. It was run by Heidi Breiken. And that particular honey trap compromised a bunch of big shots. And that brothel was about a block away from the Watergate, which is, it was about a block away from the Watergate. And that's where the CIA was set up with its cameras and compromise apparatus. So what would happen there was, and Watergate was all CIA. All those guys that were busted for Watergate, the burglars and McCord and Hunt, they were all CIA except for Liddy. He had been former FBI. But you would go to the Democratic National Committee on the 6th floor of the Watergate building, and if you were a big shot, you'd be directed to the desk of a secretary, and she had a bunch of pictures. And then you would choose the woman that you wanted, and then you would go to a block to the Columbia Plaza apartments, their upscale apartments, and then you'd have sex with that particular prostitute, and then you would be compromised. Now, what's really interesting is the burglars, the Watergate burglars, had the key to that particular desk where the pictures were kept and had their photography equipment set up on that desk. And it's amazing. And the FBI knew about that key and didn't say anything. There's a lot about Watergate that people don't know, but it was a CIA coup, Watergate.
Well, I've been saying that it was a CIA coup, that the current man is sitting in the White House. I think there was a coup. There was a coup in the last election. They implanted Sleepy Pedo Joe, and I was wrong. Nick, my prediction was that man would not be sworn in because it couldn't be allowed. It's too big a national security threat, but that's because I was naive. Our country's already long since been taken over. It would be a national security threat to let Trump be in the White House because he might just make America great again. He might just put America first. Okay, and we know what happens when a leader puts a country first. Look at El Salvador. Look what Bukele has done in such a short time. He's cleaned up the country. It's gone from the most dangerous country in the Western Hemisphere to the second safest country in the Western Hemisphere in a very short time. We wouldn't want that to happen here. Oh, and by the way, guys, for those who worship at the altar of Joe Biden and liberalism and Marxism and communism, well, the chickens are coming home to roost because those Haitian immigrants, the Haitians are now being caught trying to get into Florida, okay, as they flee cannibals. I wonder how many criminals, and by the way, how about Venezuela emptying their prisons and their insane asylums, their mental institutions, and bringing those people to our border? The fall of the republic is upon us, my friend, and this next election is very important because in my view, if they steal another one, well, I might just start calling Mexico home.
Well, that's why it's important for your listeners and viewers to go to EpsteinJustice.com. You can sign our petition we have a form letter, you put your name and where you live, and it goes right to your federal legislators. And also you can put your email in and then we'll send you our newsletter. Because at this point, we need to congeal. All Americans need to congeal. And we really need to get that dark rogue element of intelligence. We have to get it out of our government. We have to get the people that are compromised out of our government. And if that doesn't happen, we will end up like most empires in a pretty rudimentary shape. And it's up to us, and we can do it. Epstein justice, we can do it. We can put pressure on the government for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We can demand that the perpetrators, and we know who a bunch of them are, be indicted, and we can demand why the government is aiding and abetting child trafficking. And at that point, when it starts to congeal, at that point, we'll be able to start cleaning out our government. Because, as I said when we started this podcast, you would never trust an individual or a group that's aiding and abetting child trafficking. And right now, our government is aiding and abetting child trafficking. That shows you how corrupt and perfidious it is. And that hasn't changed at this point.
Yep, it's a horrifying realization to come to that not only is there a lack of justice and equal application of justice under the law, obviously the intelligence agencies, the alphabet agencies, the NSA, the FBI, they've all been weaponized against the American people. And to add injury to insult, on top of all that, their currency is children. These people traffic in children. It's absolutely horrifying. I know that sounds like hyperbole, guys, but 85,000, these are the official numbers. I'm sure it's much higher. 85,000 children have been trafficked when they came over that border. These children have vanished. They vanished into child sex slavery, human slavery, child sacrifice. God knows. I'll give you the last one.
I'll give you an interesting number. According to the Centers for Disease Control, and most people say that this is conservative, very conservative, 25% of underage girls in America have been molested and 7% of underage boys. And the number is much higher for underage boys. At least a lot of experts say that. And it's probably higher for girls too. But if you go with the CDC numbers of 25% and 7%, you've got 52 million Americans that have been molested as minors. And this is something that, as a society, we also have to work on. We have to make sure that the government doesn't aid and abet child trafficking, but as a society, we can do much better by our children. When 52 million Americans have been molested as underage boys or girls, that is a pandemic, and that is something that we need to fix. And 85% of the children that are trafficked in the United States are American children. And a lot of people think that they're from the third world country or Eastern Europe, but no, 85% of the children that are trafficked in the United States are American children. So we need to fix this. We need to fix it with Epstein justice, and we also just need to fix it for the decency and morality of the American people.
And to save ourselves, to save our nation. Because I got to tell you, God will not be mocked. And right now, this current administration and the rhinos and all these evildoers, these people that openly are involved in this type of activity and the cover up of these activities, well, may God have mercy on their souls, because God will not be mocked. Guys, you can find Nick's work at nickbryantnyc.com and follow him on Twitter or X at Nick_Bryant. That's BRYANT. Nick, I hope you'll come back on again. I'll be more prepared the next time. You've written so many great books. We could dig into a number of different conspiracies. And by the way, they're not conspiracy theories. These are conspiracies in the wide open that are ignored by Anderson Cooper and Rachel Maddow and all those whores in the mainstream Mockingbird media.
It's been great to talk to you, Sean.
Great having you on, sir. Until next time, please take care. Friends, thanks so much for tuning in. I'll remind you every single day for free, you can check us out for free to get the antidote to corporate propaganda and all of those Mockingbird mainstream media lies at sgtreport.com. Until next time, thanks so much for being here. May God bless you and yours. Bye-bye.
All right, that was the SGT. Got one more to go. One more to go. Come on. Reload. Let's go. There you go. Thank you very much. Whoops. Did I copy the wrong one? I think I might have copied the wrong one. But, all right, here we go.
Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3308 PM. Today's date is March 18th, 2024, and the title of the episode is Bloodbath Stage Set, Obama Spygate Panic, Makes Trip to the UK, Five Eye, Time to Show the People. Let's talk about protecting ourselves. Law enforcement agencies across the country are struggling to contain the steadily rising crime rates. Carjacking, homicides, robberies, most times slowing down affect politicians and residents alike. Even Americans feel overstated. Recent polls reveal the secret crime levels at extremely very serious. This is why I protect myself thanks to Jason Street. Absolutely. Absolutely. Complimentary with every order. That's fighterflare.com. That is fighterflare.com, or click the link in the description. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, big tech, fake news, the puppet masters, they went ahead and they did exactly what I do believe Trump wanted them to do. Trump used the word bloodbath during his Ohio rally. He was talking about the automobile manufacturers, talking about China, but I do believe he knew that the deep state players, the corrupt politicians, would take that word and use it in a different way. And I do believe he chose that word because if you go back in time, the fake news use that word all the time. The corrupt politicians use that word all the time. And when I say all the time, I'm talking about all the time. And he knew if he used that word, he would be able then to turn around and say, look, they use it all the time. They've been doing this a lot longer than me. I said it once, and I was talking about the automobile manufacturers. And when you look at the definition of bloodbath, yes, I know the deep state, the fake news, the corrupt politicians all out there saying, oh, it's violence. Well, the second definition is an economic disaster. So really think about what Trump has done here. He set the stage. He knew the fake news, the corrupt politicians were going to do this. And why would he put this out there? Because once again, they're building the narrative to do what? I do believe they're getting prepared and ready to interfere in the election. Yes, I know they're interfering in the election now with all these indictments. Yes, we already know that they cheated in the election, but I do believe what they're going to do is they're going to basically move forward with their insurgency during the presidential election. Think about what they've done already. They ran a simulation of misinformation and disinformation. By the way, misinformation and disinformation has been around forever. Go back to the founding fathers when they were fighting the Revolutionary War. There was misinformation and disinformation all over the place. There was censorship all over the place. Why do you think our founding fathers used pen names? Why do you think they went into hiding? They didn't want people to know who they were and what they were writing because they'd be arrested. So we've seen this before, but think about it. They ran a simulation to see what would happen if militias, and think about that for a second, militias interfered with the election, where it would scare off the people. So think about the insurgency. Do you think they're going to use their foot soldiers, the illegals, Antifa, and others to try to disrupt the elections? But again, if they're building the narrative that Trump is looking for a bloodbath, Do you think they're going to have people dressed up as Trump supporters where they will try to interfere with the elections, just like January 6th? I do believe they're building this up right now, and that's what they're pushing. I do believe Trump has set the stage for all this. Remember, there's an insurgency that was building since Obama came into office, and there's been a counterinsurgency being created now since Trump came into office. Trump already got one piece of the counterinsurgency. He got the military on his side. He took control of the country. Now he's getting the people on his side. And you think the people are going to believe what the deep state is saying is happening? No, this time around, I don't think they're going to believe it. And I do believe in the end, what's going to happen is they're going to bring out the military. When I say the military, DHS, National Guard, and they're the ones who are going to have to call the ball because they're already calling for DHS and others to get involved in all of this because of what Trump said. So I do believe we're heading down this path. Now, as we approach the elections, I do believe that the deep state players, they're prepared and ready to make a change in who is going to be the presidential candidate. And the reason why I say this is because, remember, Jim Jordan, he is subpoenaing the records for Crossfire Hurricane, which implicates Obama. Obama made a trip to the UK to meet with the prime minister out there. And remember, Obama orchestrated the spying of Trump, and he used Five Eyes to do this. And what country is part of Five Eye? The UK. So I do believe he was out there to talk to them and to see where they're at. And I do believe Obama, in the end, he's going to have to take complete and utter control of the situation. And actually, he's going to have to remove Biden so he can take complete and utter control, which means if they remove Biden, Kamala will then be the candidate. But I don't believe she's going to run because already we're getting word that they want her to resign, which is very interesting, which means I do believe they're getting prepared and ready to bring in Michelle Obama. So Obama, Barack Obama, can have complete and utter control. But remember, the people need to see and they need to understand that Obama is completely corrupt. He didn't run a scandal-free administration, which people can already see because remember, Biden was doing all this as vice president while Obama was president, and Obama knew nothing about this, which is absolutely ridiculous. So we can see everything is now being set up, and the people are going to see quite a bit. Now, we're going to be talking a little bit more about this a little bit later. But first, let's talk about what's happening with the illegals right now, because we shouldn't even call them illegals anymore. These are criminal invaders into this country. And these criminal invaders, they're being brought in by the criminals, the upper level criminals. And we could see that they've been trying to keep them housed. They've been trying to pay for their meals. They're using all this money to help them, but they're not helping the American people who are living on the streets, who can't make ends meet. They lost their jobs. Actually, they're giving the jobs to the criminal invaders. And they are doing all of this right now. Why? Because they need these people, because they're losing the actual Americans. They need all these other people that have no allegiance to this country whatsoever. But out in Chicago, it looks like Chicago's ready to evict over 5,600 illegal migrants from the city-run shelters. And the eviction comes as Mayor Brandon Johnson, says the 60-day limit is set to kick in. And even though Chicago has been a sanctuary city for nearly 40 years, they have to remove these people in these areas. So where are all these people going to go? Are they just going to go to the streets? I think Chicago is going to end up to be a complete and utter mess, just like New York City. I mean, we have Mayor Adams out there trying to convince people that New York is one of the safest cities. Why is the National Guard in the subway? Why did someone just get shot in the head? Why are people being pushed onto the tracks? Why are we seeing all this if it's so safe? Really think about this for a second. And really think about this. The government fought harder against Texas for securing the border than they did against the military-age men illegally crossing the border, which tells you pretty much everything you need to know. And you can see how things are now building up. And as we get closer and closer to the presidential election, we only have like 7 months or so left to go. The deep state players, what do they got to do? They got to control the flow of information. Well, remember, we're in an information war. I do believe it's going to go physical, but right now we're in an information war. So what they're going to do and what the deep state is planning to do is they're going to try to control as much as they possibly can. Now, on the other side, the counterinsurgency, what is the Patriots going to do? They're going to counter everything the deep state is trying to do. And who's actually winning the information war? It's actually the Patriots. See, the deep state, if they had control over information, they wouldn't be worrying about misinformation and disinformation. At the World Economic Forum, if you notice, their main topic was how to control misinformation and disinformation. If they had control over the information, they wouldn't be discussing that. The only reason they're discussing it is because they lost control of the flow of information. And what's very interesting is that right now we see that there are 8 car makers that have already removed the AM broadcast from electric vehicles. So right now we have car manufacturers removing the AM radio conservative talk shows. Is this a way to control the flow of information? Absolutely. So they're removing this from all their electric cars. So you could see where this is all headed. Remember, once you have control of the currency, once you have control of the food supply, once you have control of the creation of energy, once you have control over the flow of information, you control the people. And this is what the deep state actually wants in the end. But it's not working because what have the Patriots been doing? They've been setting up countermeasures along the way. And I do believe this new bill that Congress passed was to actually help the Patriots. Yes, I know the other side, they're going to try to control the flow of information. They're going to try to have TikTok purchased. But I do believe Trump and the Patriots, I do believe they're going to be making some moves. And actually, Kash Patel said something very, very interesting about how we can divest TikTok from the CCP and take control of where all this data is going. Because remember, foreign countries like China, they've been spying on the people, taking the people's data. And I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they're about to shut this down. Take a listen to what Kash says here.
How you have viewed TikTok. You've done a lot of work on this in your role.
Yeah, look, in the Trump administration, I think President Trump righteously acted on national security intelligence by rolling out a discussion to ban TikTok. He actually acted on the intelligence that proved to be true and was castigated for it for 3 years. And just last week, we have Senator Warner confirming that TikTok is a national security threat. I think where we need to go is if we can divest TikTok completely of any CCP ties, then towards the Congresswoman's point, we can shut down the military intelligence collections capabilities. But at least we're having this conversation and it's gotten to Congress. And we expose a major national security threat from the Chinese Communist Party against the American people and our children.
Now, I do believe the other parts of the bill, this is going to be used against the deep state social media companies. Because remember, these companies, they've been working with foreign actors from the very, very beginning. And I do believe in the end, when Trump wins, they're going to use all of this against them. Remember, everything that we're witnessing, everything that we're seeing right now is the biggest sting operation the world has ever seen. And if you're going to bring down and destroy the deep state players, you need to catch them in the act multiple times. You just can't catch them in the act one time. You have to show the pattern. You have to show the courts, the people. Look, they just didn't do it by accident. It wasn't just a glitch. They did it multiple times. It was on purpose. And I do believe this is what Trump and the Patriots have been doing. And while they're doing it, they're waking the American people up at the same exact time. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that every step of the way, what have we been seeing and what have we been witnessing? We've been witnessing the attacks on the Constitution. Because what is the deep state doing? They're trying to violate everyone's constitutional rights. And I do believe this is a test of the Constitution and is actually waking the people up to show them how important the Constitution is. Because you just can't show the people, look at the criminal syndicate, get the people pissed off, say, okay, we can't take any more of this, and then have people take back the country. The people also have to understand that the Constitution is very, very important, and we should never let these people, the deep state people, violate our constitutional rights. And remember, the Constitution was put into place to protect the people. System Update put this out there, and there's a huge court case going on right now, and it is the government trying to convince the Supreme Court that they have the right to violate everyone's First Amendment by telling the social media platforms who to censor and who not to censor. So System Update put this out and said, Ketanji Jackson Brown doubles down. My biggest concern is that your view has the First Amendment hamstringing the government in significant ways. That is quite literally the entire point of the First Amendment, of the entire Bill of Rights. Libs of TikTok responded to this and said, wow, the person who doesn't know what a woman is also doesn't know what the First Amendment is. So put it this way, the government doesn't control what we, the people, say. The Bill of Rights wasn't written to restrain we, the people. It was written to restrain the government. The contract that our founding fathers put together, it was telling the government, you're not allowed to tell us what we can or cannot say. You're not allowed to go after our weapons. You're not allowed to search our homes without a warrant. You're not allowed to do all of these things. It was telling the government, these are the things you can't do. And it had nothing to do with misinformation or disinformation, because we're not children. We're all adults, and the founding fathers, they knew that people could think logically. And again, when you read the First Amendment, it's not the government's job to basically curate speech, what they think is misinformation, what they think is disinformation. Because let's go back to COVID, for example. They censored people because they believed that the information that these epidemiologists were putting out, other scientists were putting out, or just everyday people were putting out was wrong. Oh, we don't like what this person said about masks. Everyone must wear a mask. Well, the science shows differently, but the government says, no, you must believe and do what we say, or else you're censored. When someone says, well, I think the vaccines, they're dangerous. I don't think we should be taking them. Well, the government says, well, you're not along with our narrative. So again, you're putting out misinformation, disinformation, because it doesn't agree with what we think. We have to ban you. And in the end, what happens? It turns out that it was the government that was putting out misinformation, disinformation. Actually, everything they told us was misinformation and disinformation. They never backed up anything with peer-reviewed information. All they did was tell us, yes, this is what it is. They never showed us the science. They never showed us anything. Then they censored the people that actually did the science, that actually had the peer-reviewed documentation. This is why it's not the government's job to tell us what we can or cannot say. The Constitution is, hey, government, leave us alone. You have no rights over us. That's what the contract is there for. You think the founding fathers, after they fought the Revolutionary War, when they sat around the table, you think they were sitting there going, hey, you know what we should do? We should make this Constitution so it gives the government a lot of power. No, they sat around the table saying, you know something? We need to put something in place to tell the government this is what they can't do. You can't come after our weapons. You can't make laws to go up against the Constitution and the rights of the people, and you can't take them away. They did this on purpose because they fought a war for freedom. This is what the British government was doing to them. They were censoring them. They were putting people in prison because the people, the information they were putting out there, it didn't correlate with what the British government actually wanted. And if you went up against the British government, what did they do? They took you away. They put you in jail, and they had a sham court trial. Oh, we're seeing that with Trump right now. So basically, everything that you're witnessing right now is basically what happened during the first revolution. And remember, the government at the time was everyone's government. It was the British government. The British government was tyrannical. They were trying to get control of their subjects. And the people didn't want the British government to control them. The same thing is happening right now. The crooks, the criminals that are in DC, they're trying to control the people of this country. And it's testing the Constitution. And the people are witnessing all of this. And the people are starting to understand, holy crap, this is how important the Constitution is. Because if you give the government the ability to censor because they believe it's disinformation, they believe it's misinformation, what do you think they're going to do next? You think they're going to stop there?
Real quick here, choosy heretics. Now I see my whole chat, and I do not see you admonished by any mods in my chat. I don't see anybody putting you in timeout or anything else. Maybe you should look to YouTube for your admonishment, not my viewers.
No, they're going to say, let's move down the line here. Now, if you say anything, we're going to arrest you. Oh, wait, that's already happening. It's already happening out in Germany. Remember, they don't have the Constitution like we have the Constitution. Out in Germany, a schoolgirl, she was arrested because she shared a video expressing political sympathies with the right-wing AfD party in a harmless Smurf video. Think about this for a second. So Germany's going back to the time when there was Nazis? They're picking people up if you put out information they don't like? That's what's happening here, isn't it? They're throwing people in prison for what reasons? They're censoring people for what reasons? Thank God here in the United States, we have the Constitution. And her mother, the girl's mother, feels for political freedom and her civil rights in Germany. So now they're panicking over there because they're watching this play out and they're starting to remember. And yes, this is how important the Constitution is. And this is what the people now are seeing. And as they keep pushing, as the deep state continually pushes, people are going to see a lot more. They saw it back in COVID when the mayors, the governors, and the blue states, they became dictators and they didn't want to release their power. What happened afterwards? All these different courts ruled in the favor of the Constitution, showing that they didn't have the rights to do any of the things that they did. The only reason they were allowed to do it is because the people decided, okay, we will allow you to do it. The people didn't have to do that. But now I think this time around, the people aren't going to allow them to do it because sometimes you got to show the people. You got to show the people, look what they did here. Don't ever let it happen again. This is how people fight for their freedom. You got to show them what these people do, how they try to take away their rights. And then the people say, no, we're not standing for this. This is how people begin to fight for their freedom, for their rights. And when you have the majority of the people saying absolutely not, what happens? The deep state backs down every single time. And since we're talking about the Constitution and the D's like to say, and the fake news like to say, democracy, where we're not a democracy, it's a republic. But again, democracy is their system of control. Look what's happening out in Russia. Putin held an election during the Ukrainian war, and he wins 88% of the vote. And the deep state players, what do they call it? A dictatorship. Zelensky, on the other hand, cancels the elections and blames the war. The West calls it democracy, or should we say the deep state calls it democracy. Isn't that interesting how that works? And by the way, Clandestine put that out. And you can really see the truth of the matter. You could really see exactly what's happening here. Just like you could see what's happening with COVID. I mean, really think about it. During COVID, the CDC, the FDA said, whatever we say, and Fauci, by the way, yeah, and Biden, whatever we say is the truth. What everyone else says is a lie. I mean, really think about that for a second. So if you don't, agree with our truth, even though we have no science to back it up, just because we're just saying it, we're going to have to censor you because, again, you're not going along with our truth. And that's what the government really was doing. Even though we had doctors, experts, epidemiologists, and many others who were experts in their field, who had peer-reviewed documentation. They were saying, you are wrong. You're putting out misinformation. It's not backed by science. I have the peer-reviewed documentation. If you would like to debate it and you would like to show your peer-reviewed documentation compared to our peer-reviewed documentation, that would be great. That is how a republic should work, right? The government shouldn't just censor. They should say, okay, let me see what you got. And you should have a discussion. But once again, they didn't want that because why? They didn't have peer-reviewed documentation. They couldn't back anything up. I'll give you the perfect example. Remember when a federal judge that was appointed by Trump said, listen, I'm going to remove the mask mandates because right now I don't see any evidence that masks work, and I'm removing it from the airlines. The Biden administration, Fauci and the rest said, oh, and the Department of Justice, we're going to sue. We're going to put this back in and we're going to make everyone wear masks again. Well, what happened? They couldn't do it. Why? Because they didn't have the evidence. They couldn't pursue it because they didn't have the evidence that masks worked. If they did, and they showed that it stops viruses, they would have won. But they couldn't even bring that case because, once again, you would have to prove that you have the peer-reviewed documentation that shows that it works, because the other side would say, well, we have peer-reviewed documentation that shows that it doesn't work. And this is how it fell apart. Now, the thing that's very interesting is that during the Supreme Court hearing, they said something that's very interesting. And Sean Davis put this out and said, in oral arguments before the Supreme Court over whether the government has the authority to bully media outlets into censorship on behalf of the government's attorney just argued that the censorship was okay because the government really wanted the people to be bullied into getting vaccine shots. Think about that for a second. Unbelievable. And Wall Street Silver put this out and said, never forget. Going back in time to 2020, PBS put this out, is 6 feet far enough for social distancing? Here's what science says. Fast forward to 2024, New York Post, COVID 6 feet social distancing sort of just appeared, likely lacks scientific basis, Fauci admits. So think about it. The fake news was spreading propaganda because the government was telling them what to say, and they were giving studies, and you have to be very, very clear on this. Studies that aren't peer-reviewed are worthless. They might help you understand certain things, but until they're peer-reviewed, it doesn't mean that they're right. It doesn't mean that this is the true science. So you can use many different studies. And remember, a lot of the studies that are out there are done by certain groups to push a certain narrative. That's why peer-reviewed documentation is the way to go. Because once you have the study, you should have unbiased scientists take it and repeat it and say, yes, this is exactly what the study is. We were able to repeat those results. Remember, the government and all their scientists, they didn't have the peer-reviewed documentation, but they like to use the word science and studies to convince you that this is real and it's case closed. That's why they say the science is settled. And the reason why they were saying science was settled, because they didn't want peer-reviewed documentation. They didn't want people looking into it. So how do you stop people from looking into it? You censor them. You shut them down. That's how you do it. But don't worry. The CDC, they finally released their 148-page study on myocarditis. Now, remember, we had many different individuals do different studies. There are a lot now that are peer-reviewed, and they're showing that, yes, those people that took the vaccine, they are getting myocarditis. And when the CDC released their information, every single word is redacted. Think about that for a second. Do you think that people have the right to know information that the government has? I think so. Remember, these are elected individuals in government. We should have the right to see this information. The government works for we the people. We the people control the government. It's not the other way around. And we should see the information. So when they redact every single word, what does that tell you? It tells you that something is going on here. How severe were the results. Did they know about this ahead of time, which I do believe they did? Because remember, we had many, many doctors out there saying, yes, we're seeing cases of myocarditis. Yes, we see it. It's clear as day. The VAERS is actually showing it. But look, they hid everything from the people again. That should tell you everything you need to know. And the other thing that should tell you everything you need to know is that the women now are fighting against the government, fighting against the trans movement, and they're taking everything back. A group of female athletes, they filed a lawsuit against the National Collegiate Athletic Association. They're doing this because they're saying that transgender athletes shouldn't be competing on their teams. They shouldn't be using the locker rooms that are meant for women. And the lawsuit was filed by the Independent Council of Women's Sports on behalf of over a dozen female athletes. It alleges that the NCAA violated Title IX, a federal statute that guarantees equal opportunity for men and women in college sports. And it seeks to prohibit biological males from competing against female athletes. Further, it demands the NCAA revoke awards received by transgender athletes who competed against women in tournaments that were governed by the organization. And they're absolutely right. And now you could see more and more women are waking up to this. More and more women are fighting back. And I do believe this is going to be a huge movement as we move forward. But the other thing that we've come to find out, and there are two studies on this right now, and this study is out of Finland, and it's found that people who believe in woke ideas of social justice are more likely to be anxious, miserable, and depressed. Now, the study that was done, and it's not peer-reviewed yet, but again, I do believe once it's peer-reviewed, you're going to see that this is going to become fact. But there are two studies now that are showing this. And actually, we could start to actually look at Antifa, who are made up of a lot of trans people, those people that are running around shooting people. There's something going on. And I think people can see this right now. And the study entitled Construction and Validation of a Scale for Assessing Critical Social Justice Attitudes was carried out by Oskari Latinen, a senior researcher at the Invest Research Flagship Center at the University of Turku. And it sought to establish the prevalence of the woke worldview of and the kinds of people who hold it. And an intriguing aspect of the study was its exploration of the relationship between critical social justice and mental well-being. And they found a correlation between higher agreement with critical social justice attitudes and increased reports of anxiety and depression, which kind of explains everything. And I wonder if this has to do with the medication that they're on. And most likely, it probably is. And we'll have to see how this all plays out when others go to peer review the documentation, and then people will get their answer. I mean, I think we'll get a lot of information when they release the manifesto of the trans shooter in Nashville. And since we're talking about Nashville, remember when the deep state players wanted to fund all the police, and now we have crime all over the place, and it's wreaking havoc on the cities, and the people are getting really pissed off. And now the people are saying, you know what, enough is enough. We need the police back. Well, a Democrat Tennessee state senator has called for riots after Republican lawmakers passed a pro-police bill. State Senator Charlene Oliver was responding to the passing of legislation that prevents cities from restricting police officers from making certain types of traffic stops. So she's calling for riots because they're giving the police a little bit more power. Really think about this for a second, and think about what people are seeing all across the country right now, where all those different blue areas where they said, let's defund the police, crime is completely and utterly out of control. And the people who live there, they see it and they want the police back. And most likely, I think people are saying, why don't we have weapons? Because when you see these things happen and you see the crime, the shooting and everything else, what do people want to do? They want to defend themselves. If the police aren't there, you need to defend yourself. Even if the police are there, how long does it take the police to get to you? A couple of minutes? Well, you could be dead at that point. So I do believe we need to go back to our roots, and we need to go back to the Second Amendment, and the people should have the right to carry wherever they want. Actually, wait, they do have the right. That's why all these ridiculous laws are meaningless, because once again, they're violating our constitutional rights. We don't need a law that says we have constitutional carry. We don't need any type of ID that says, oh, we can have a weapon, because if you read the Second Amendment, it shall not infringe. It's pretty darn clear here. And every single law infringes on our right to carry a weapon. And you can see the deep state players have been trying to brainwash the people for a very long time. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is we can see that January 6th and the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer, that is completely falling apart. I do believe the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer was a dry run of January 6th. And what's very interesting is that Revolver News, they put out something out on Truth, and it says, leaked audio exposes FBI dirty dealings with key informant architect of Whitmer kidnapping plot. Trump responded to this and said, wow. And we know that the FBI orchestrated the entire thing, just like the FBI, the Capitol Police, Nancy Pelosi, CIA now, at DHS, and many others. They were all involved in January 6th, and they overthrew the United States government. They had a coup d'etat. Actually, they were planning and trying to push a coup d'etat back in 2016. It failed. They actually pulled it off in 2020, where they overthrew the United States government and they put in a puppet government. That's what they really did. That is treason right there. I mean, they did this to other countries. Look at Libya. Look at Iraq. Look what they were trying to do in Syria. They did it to Ukraine. They did it to Somalia. They did it to many, many countries. They did it here. And now their entire insurrection that they had against Trump is completely falling apart. Trump, he put this out and said, our great Secret Service has totally crushed Cassidy Hutchinson, who I barely knew, made up fake stories about me roughing up Secret Service agents from the backseat of the Beast limo. Has she now changed her testimony? Will she be prosecuted for what she did and said? What about the unselect January 6th committee? They destroyed almost everything, including real evidence and findings. What's going to happen with them? Serious crimes have been committed. Now, is anything going to happen to them right now? No, but I do believe Trump, he's building this narrative, letting everyone know that they created a fake story. They used fake evidence to try to charge Trump and to cover up everything that they did. And when it didn't work and the House was voted in with the MAGA Patriots, they knew that they were going to be coming after that information. Actually, the MAGA Patriots said, listen, do not destroy what you have. You must preserve it. So what did they do? They destroyed it. Is anything really destroyed? Absolutely not. Why did they do that? Because they're covering up their crime. The cover-up always gets you. Now, in regards to Trump's case with Letitia James, peekaboo, it looks like Trump cannot come up with $454 million, and he won't be able to get that bond, which means talk about protecting your wealth. If you have a bank account, pay attention. Your savings could be at risk. The U.S. banking system is once again under extreme stress. This jeopardizes you. Corrupt system will probably go after his buildings unless Trump then can find some type of judge or someone to come to his aid. Now, this doesn't mean they take his building, they knock it down, and they're going to hold it in escrow, and it's going to allow Trump to appeal. And Trump will appeal, and I do believe in the end, once Trump gets a federal judge that actually follows the rule of law, they're going to look at this, and I wouldn't be surprised in the end if this federal judge says, this is a miscarriage of justice. These people need to pay the lawyer fees of Trump. I wouldn't be surprised if they get disbarred. I wouldn't be surprised if they cannot work ever again. Actually, they should go to jail for what they have done. Now, the judge might just rule in Trump's favor, but I do believe in the end, I do believe these people, they should be disbarred, they should go to jail, and they should pay every dime back. And they should apologize to the people of this country. Let's see what happens. This should be very, very interesting. But the other thing that's very interesting is that Judge McAfee on page 20 of his ruling tacitly invites Trump's legal team to file a motion gagging DA Fani Willis from making any more legally improper speeches or comments about the case that might taint the jury pool, as she did at a black church in Atlanta. That is very, very interesting. But now, what do people know? The people know that she's corrupt. The people know that she's unethical. And when people saw everything play out, they realized that the system is completely and utterly corrupt. And I think the people are learning this every single day. They're seeing the two-tier justice system. It's becoming very, very clear. And what's becoming very, very clear is that all these indictments and everything they're trying to do with all the trials before the election, this is definitely election interference. And actually, Roger Stone points out something very, very interesting. It's something that Adam Schiff says, where Adam Schiff says the DOJ should have moved faster with Trump indictments. And he's saying that Trump probably wants to have the trials after elections. Roger Stone responded to this and said, more proof that the indictments are really manufactured election interference against Trump. Shifty Adam Schiff, architect of the Russian collusion hoax, says it out loud. The left is hysterical that Trump may not stand trial on a fabricated charge before the election. And he's absolutely right. Then Trump put this out and he said, can you imagine Adam Shifty Schiff talking about me evading justice when he is the most outrageously crooked politician out there, with the possible exception of crooked Joe Biden, the worst president by far in the history of the United States? Absolutely. But I do believe the deep state players, they're prepping and preparing to basically have a change of battery. And it looks like they're already starting the narrative right now, because Kamala Harris is being called to resign from her position in order to give Joe Biden a better chance at re-election. So Kathleen Parker of the Washington Post editorial board penned the opinion editorial, which was published on Friday, and wrote that they should now remove Kamala Harris. And she said, this is why I propose, with all due respect, that Harris step away from the ticket. Please, Madam Vice President, do it for our country. So the Kamala conundrum comes down to this. She was picked because she was black and female, a combo tantamount to a job security. Now that she has become a burden to the Democratic ticket, Biden can't fire her. He can't risk alienating his base, full stop. So what are they suggesting now? Are they suggesting that Kamala won't be on the ticket? And will they trade one black woman for another? Will they bring in Michelle Obama saying that she's running as Joe Biden's vice president? Really think about this for a second. Then what happens when Biden has a full and utter breakdown? Will then Michelle Obama then run for president? It seems like they're planning to do something, and something is in the works. Very, very interesting. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is that Trump is continually telling Biden it is time to debate. He put this out on Truth. He said, it's time for crooked Joe Biden and I to debate. We owe it to our country, anytime, anywhere, any place. Let's see how this plays out. I wonder if he's going to debate. This should be very interesting. But since they're asking Kamala to, get off the ticket and don't run with Biden, I find it very interesting that Barack Obama decided to the UK. So you have to ask yourself a simple question. Why would Obama be going to the UK? Why would he meet with the prime minister? Well, it shows you that he's really the one that's pretty much calling the shots, telling Joe what to do. But again, why is he there? George Papadopoulos put this out on X and said, Obama arrives at 10 Downing Street to meet with senior UK political and security officials. This unannounced trip comes just days after a bombshell report revealed he involved the UK's intel agencies along with the CIA to spy on the Trump campaign and administration. So remember, Jim Jordan, he is looking for information on the Crossfire Hurricane case. And remember, Obama was behind this. Trump has said it many, many times before that Obama spied on me. So let's go back to post 1667, July 3rd, 2018. And I'm going to read the top part first. And it says, will be extremely important going forward. UK primary turn taken. FBI DOJ to state Hussein White House, including CIA and other appointments start, to foreign bad actors, Rod Rosenstein, deadline. We have the server. Down below, it says, normally, intelligence passed on the member of the Five Eyes Alliance, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the UK, and the US, to another member comes through an official channel for intelligence sharing. However, Nunes, upon reviewing the document that formally launched the FBI's investigation, said there was no intelligence shared through that official channel, meaning that the intelligence was shared through unofficial means. So again, why was Obama out there? Was he out there to talk to them, to say, listen, do not give anything to them? Do not tell them what we did here? It's starting to seem that way. Then if we go to post 4044, May 2nd, 2020, it says Spygate. It shows Obama. It shows Baker, Comey, Brennan, Clapper. And down below it says, never has a president left office to collude with others to impede the next sitting president of the United States of America. Down below, it has a link to Trump's Twitter account. He has a tweet there. And down below, it's Kimberly Strassel. It says the FBI knew Michael Flynn wasn't colluding with Russia, so it plotted to get him to lie. New documents reveal that by the end, the Bureau just wanted a scalp. Trump responded to this and said, the Russia hoax is the biggest political scandal in American history. Treason. Let's see how this ends. I do believe that Obama right now is in the crosshairs. I do believe Trump and the Patriots are forcing the change of batter one way or another. So this way, Obama comes into focus. Already we have Crossfire Hurricane out in the open. Jim Jordan is subpoenaing the records. We have Obama flying all the way to the UK to meet with the prime minister and others to talk about what is happening. You think he's panicking right now? Absolutely. Sometimes you got to show the people who the corrupt, treasonous people are. Remember, Obama picked his United States Secret Service name. His Secret Service name is Renegade, traitor, treasonous. Think about it. Turncoat. So the insurgency started when Obama came into office. And he's building the insurgency this entire time. Trump came in 2016, and he is building the counterinsurgency to Obama's insurgency. Trump already got one part of the counterinsurgency, which is the military. He got that on November 3rd, 2020. Now on November 5th, 2024, he's going to get the second part of the counterinsurgency, and that is the people of this country. And once you have the people in the military together, you have the counterinsurgency. And this is what Trump has been doing this entire time, showing the people how important the Constitution is, showing the people this is what you have to do to fight for freedom, showing the people this is what you have to do to take back the country, and this is what you have to do to keep the country. Because without knowing what the criminals look like, without knowing what their system does and how it operates, you can't take it back. You can't take back the country, and you can't keep it. So you got to know how to do it. And you could see Trump is winning. Trump, he put this out, and this is pointing to Nate Silver, and it says Democrats are hemorrhaging support with voters of color. The trend is real in polls. And you could see that they are losing the minority vote. They're losing the blacks, they're losing the Latinos, and it's getting worse and worse for them. Then Trump put this out, and this is coming from the Washington Times, and the headline says, Trump's electoral map and coalition are expanding. The 2024 presidential election will be an issue-based campaign, whether President Biden likes it or not. When you step back and you really take a look about what's really going on, and you take a look at the board, everything that you're witnessing, everything that you're seeing today, open borders, crashing economy, war, this is Trump's campaign. This is his campaign to get the people. All he needed was the deep state to follow the 16-year plan, and all he needed was them to show everyone how they were going to destroy the country. Everything that you're seeing, this is his campaign. It's his campaign against the deep state, and he's winning. How do we know this? Well, it's very interesting because the New York Times put this out and said how Trump allies are winning the war over disinformation. American First Legal put this out and said, America First Legal and its allies in Congress are winning the war against censorship. The New York Times is actually admitting that Trump is winning the information war. And this is why I do believe the deep state players are going to try to move the information war into a physical war. And yes, they will try to control information. They will try as hard as they possibly can. And eventually what's going to happen is when they can't control it anymore, they will just shut it all down. And it looks like we're heading in that direction. And I think Trump and the Patriots, they know that they're going to use violence because that's what an insurgency is. And they're getting prepared and ready to do this. And I do believe Trump gave them the ammunition to bring and move their plan forward. Because remember, this is about catching them in the act. This is about the American people seeing it. And if you want to guard the elections, if you want to go to paper ballots, what do you got to do? You got to allow the enemy to do what they do best. Don't interfere with them. Let them do it. This way we can bring out the National Guard. We can bring out the military. We can have a protected election. We can guard the election and have a fair election, because you take it all away from the deep state. You take their computer systems, their mail-in ballots, their drop boxes, and the people that guard their elections. You just take it all away from them and let the people have a fair, transparent election. But you can see the deep state players, the fake news, the corrupt politicians, they're going crazy over bloodbath. So Biden's communication director, Michael Tyler, goes on the show of the former Biden press secretary, Jen Psaki, to spew disinformation. Tyler says Trump's bloodbath remark was an endorsement of political violence. He was talking about the auto industry. Tyler backs up his hoax with the hoax that Trump called Nazis very fine people. We even had MSNBC hosts sitting there going, yeah, we hear all the people on social media. We hear all the people saying, oh, it was about the automobile manufacturers. Well, you people are stupid. He's calling for violence because he used the word bloodbath. Bloodbath is just that, a bloodbath. Well, what's very interesting is Power Tie put up a video of Joe from NBC repeatedly calling for bloodbaths over and over and over again. And this was before Trump said it. So I do believe what Trump did, he's kind of set these people up because he knew that they used the word bloodbath all the time. And Trump, he actually allowed the deep state now to take this narrative to make people think that Trump is going to have a bloodbath. Now, the Trump supporters, the people that are thinking logically, they know that this is all BS. But again, the deep state players, they're going to try to do what they did on January 6th. They're going to try to have people dressed up as Trump supporters. They're going to try to make it look like Trump's people are very angry because there might be a stalemate or they might not certify the elections. This is what they're going to try to do. But actually, when you look at the definition of bloodbath, and John Ocasio-Rodam put this out and said, here's the first definition: a great slaughter. The second definition: a notably fierce, violent, or destructive contest or struggle. The second part of that definition is a major economic disaster. So Trump, he was talking about a bloodbath in regards to the automobile manufacturers and electric vehicles. But again, you could see what they're doing right now because CNN, MSNBC, they're using this to spread disinformation to get the feds to meddle in the elections against Trump. That is what they're trying to do. Juliet Kayyem put this out and said, a proposal. It is good Biden is talking about the threat to our democracy coming from the violence Trump promises. We have a whole department created to address terrorism, and it would be nice to hear a plan about protecting our homeland security. DOJ is not built for this. So they're projecting what they're going to do. And I do believe in the end, under the Biden administration, they're the ones who are going to be calling the ball. And I do believe they're going to try to make it look like that it is the MAGA supporters that are out there protesting, but it won't be, or I shouldn't say protesting, rioting and causing havoc. But what it's really going to be, it's going to be people dressed like Trump supporters. And I do believe they're the ones who are going to call the ball, and the real military is going to come in and round everyone up who's causing this problem. Because remember, it's people are going to find out, wait a minute, these aren't Trump supporters. These are illegals. These people are Antifa. So I do believe they're projecting what they're going to do. And it's all being set up. And I do believe Trump, he mentioned that word knowing that they mentioned this word multiple times, but I think he knew they were going to use it in this way. And they were going to push the idea that Trump was going to have violence during the election. Remember, they did this during the last election. He was never going to leave the White House. He's going to want to stay in control. What do you think is going to happen this time? It's going to be them, the deep state players, who are going to try to stay in the White House. It's going to be them who are going to say that the elections are rigged this time around. Everything is going to be on them. And remember Nancy Pelosi, how she talked about the wrap-up smear campaign? Well, this is exactly what she's doing right now. Charlie Kirk put this out on X. Just take a listen to what she says here.
Bloodbath. What does that mean? He's going to exact a bloodbath? There's something wrong here. How respectful I am of the American people and their goodness. But how much more do they have to see from him to understand that this isn't what our country is about? Wrap-up smear. You smear somebody with falsehoods and all the rest, and then you merchandise it. And then you write it, and they'll say, see, it's reported in the press that this, and this. So they have that validation that the press reported the smear, and then it's called the wrap-up smear. Now I'm going to merchandise the press's report on the smear that we made. And it's a tactic, and it's self-evident.
So what's different this time around is that the people are wide awake. The people now know their tactics. They know that what they're saying is not true. And this is going to be very, very difficult for the deep state players to actually pull this off this time around. Because think about it. Since Trump said it, how quickly was this debunked? So do you think when there's violence and chaos, you don't think this is going to be debunked very, very quickly? Absolutely. Because again, who's controlling the flow of information? The Patriots are. DC Drano put this out and said, record violent crime in cities, bloodbath. Ukraine war, bloodbath. Instability in the Middle East, bloodbath. Illegal aliens murdering Americans, bloodbath. Fentanyl crisis, bloodbath. Vaccine injuries and deaths, bloodbath. They don't want you to know the bloodbath is already here under Joe Biden. Absolutely. And then Trump, he let everyone know, look, the bloodbath word was used by the fake news. It was used by the corrupt politicians. He put this out on Truth and said, the fake news made a big deal out of the word bloodbath, knowing that it was about our shrinking auto manufacturing business. And the fact that they use the same name all the time. They are so bad. Take a listen to the fake news and how many times they use the word bloodbath.
Politico.com reports tonight on the, quote, bloodbath at the RNC. Headlines calling it a, quote, bloodbath.
Be a bloodbath. Not only is it going to be a bloodbath, but after they leave New Hampshire, it's a bloodbath on her home turf. That's really tough. Trump has left a lot of corpses in his wake. I mean, we can count the bodies as part of the, quote, MAGA drive to take over Maricopa County. And the headline refers to it as an impending bloodbath.
Columnist Charles Blow has a new piece for the New York Times entitled A Biden Bloodbath.
2018 midterms, you can bet that they 100% are fearing a slaughter. In fact, the word bloodbath and massacre come up frequently.
The Republican Party will be destroyed. It's going to be a bloodbath.
There's going to be a bloodbath one way or the other.
Bloodbath for Bernie Sanders.
It's been a bloodbath. They're shaping up to be a bloodbath.
Head off a bloodbath in next year's crucial midterm.
Off-year elections are often a bloodbath.
This week's bloodbath for Democrats, a bloodbath at the ballot box.
There could be a Republican bloodbath.
They'll talk about a bloodbath.
It's a bloodbath. I have to talk about you. And
It's going to be a bloodbath all day long.
is in for a bloodbath.
Hasn't been a bloodbath on the way down.
Donald Trump bloodbath.
Be a bloodbath.
Predicted to be a bloodbath. May not be the bloodbath.
It would be a bloodbath.
More of a bloodbath.
It's going to be a bloodbath in November.
Possible Biden bloodbath this November.
A bloodbath on Wall Street.
There's going to be a bloodbath
In Alabama into a bloodbath.
Obviously, there was a bloodbath. It was a bloodbath. We're down 800 points.
This bloodbath at Department of Homeland Security.
and it's a bloodbath today.
There was going to be this bloodbath.
Election bloodbath.
It could be a bloodbath for them. Bloodbath, possibly.
Bloodbath that went through with the Attorney General.
Bloodbath 99 days out.
A bloodbath is going to look like
Presided over a bloodbath in the diplomatic corps.
Absolute, in my opinion, bloodbath
bloodbath the Democrats are calling it. Ticket sales turned into a bloodbath.
Ticket sales for singer Taylor Swift's latest tour.
It's safe to say the fans had a bloodbath for the company after the fiasco.
So right there, you could see that Trump, he set the stage, and the deep state players, they're going to continue with their narrative that Trump is going to have violence, because again, as we get closer and closer to the presidential election, this is when they're going to have the insurgency. This is when they're going to have the cyber attack. Because remember, they're going to try to cheat. They're going to try to do whatever they possibly can, but they know this time around it's going to be very, very difficult. Why? Because Trump has the people. It'll be too big to rig, like Trump says. And if it's too big to rig, what are you going to do? You're just going to let Trump win? No, you're going to have to try to stop him any way you possibly can, just like they did back in 2020. They used the virus to cheat. They knew they had the ability to do it. They knew they had everything in place. The people wouldn't come out to vote. They could use the mail-in ballots. It was a perfect plan, except they got caught by the military. But again, this is part of the sting operation. This time around, they know all of that they did cannot work. So this time, they can't have an election. They have to change things up. They can't cheat the way they did before because it's going to be too big to rig. So they're going to have their insurgency, which they're building up right now, as you can see, and they're going to try to postpone the elections any way they possibly can. I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they're leading them down this path because they want the people of this country to have their vote count. They want their voice heard. And the only way to do this is with paper ballots. The only way to do this is with an election that is protected. And if you think back to the simulation that they had, they wanted to see how people reacted if militias were violent and attacking people when they're going to the voting booths. They wanted to see how people would react. Would people go to the voting booth or people wouldn't go to the voting booth? So what are they going to do? They're going to use their deep state players, their insurgency, to try to keep people away, which means the military is going to have to guard these areas. And I do believe in the end, this is not going to work the way they think it's going to work. And I do believe this is going to give the people their vote. Now, once again, once the people vote and the Electoral College and the popular vote are completely lopsided in the favor of Trump, you know the deep state players, they're not going to accept this. They're going to say, no, this is rigged. He was working with foreign governments. He cheated. Everything they said about him in 2020, they're going to say the same exact things. And they're going to try to get the vice president to send the votes back to the legislature, but it won't work because they took that power away from themselves. So they're going to try to use chaos to try not to certify the elections. And they're going to build up war to try to not certify the elections. But in the end, Trump has the most powerful weapon. It's called peace. Because once the military gets involved, once the military rounds up these people and Trump negotiates peace, even if the elections are still in a, just pending, it destroys everything the deep state trying to do. They can't win. It's impossible because peace is the most powerful weapon. If they don't have war, they don't have the chaos, they're completely exposed. And the people are going to demand that Trump be their president. Because again, the people, they went out, they had the paper ballots. We can count it again if everybody wants. It's going to show that Trump won. And if it's called upon every person showing up, I do believe every single person would show up and say, look, here's my vote. I voted for him. I'll do it again. So in the end, this is not going to work. It's going to fail. But I do believe Trump and the Patriots, they're leading them down this path because once again, we have to round up the bad actors and we can't go to war. We have to have peace. So during this entire time, as we approach the presidential election, these are the things that Trump is going to say. He's going to say, I can have peace. Just elect me. We can have an economy that's booming. Just elect me. We can close the borders. Just elect me. We'll stop the central bank digital currency. Just elect me. And as these things build up, the people, they're going to wake up. The people are going to be with him. And this is the counterinsurgency. Sometimes you just got to show the people the truth. And once this counterinsurgency is complete, it's game over for the deep state players. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.
Was the X22 report. That is the end of what I got for you today. I'm taking tomorrow. Well, I should say I'm taking today and getting more work done here on the farm. So I'll be back with you guys again on Wednesday. Get some sleep. All right, guys, get some rest. We've had a long day, all of us. And we deserve it. So just remember, God loves you, Jesus loves you, I love you, and we will see you on Wednesday. Unless something big comes out tomorrow, something big comes out, I'll be on. But other than that, get some sleep. All right. Bye. Good night.